Welcome to the Sleepy Island channel. I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin our journey tonight, take a moment to settle in. Adjust your pillow, pull your blankets close, and let your body sink deeper into your bed. Feel the weight of the day lifting from your shoulders. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. For the next 2 hours, your only job is to rest. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and release it gently through your mouth. Again, breathe in slowly and let it go. Feel your jaw relax, your shoulders drop, your entire body becoming heavier with each exhale. Tonight, we're traveling to Fiji, a constellation of islands scattered across the South Pacific like jewels on blue velvet. Let the gentle rhythm of this story carry you away from your day, away from your worries, into the warm embrace of these tropical islands. My voice will guide you through Fiji's beauty, its culture, its gentle rhythms, and as you listen, you'll feel yourself drifting deeper and deeper into peaceful sleep. Don't fight to stay awake. Don't try to remember every detail. Simply let the words wash over you like warm waves on a sandy shore. If you drift away before the story ends, that's perfect. That's exactly what should happen. Now, close your eyes and let's begin. Breathe slowly and picture yourself floating high above the vast Pacific Ocean. Below you, the water stretches endlessly in every direction, the deepest blue you've ever seen. And then, slowly emerging from this blue expanse, you see them, islands. Not just one or two, but a scattered collection of green jewels, each one surrounded by lighter blue shallows, each one fringed with white sand. You are looking down at Fiji, and Fiji is not a single island but an entire world. An archipelago of 333 islands spread across over 100,000 square miles of ocean. 333 islands. Let that number sink in as you sink deeper into comfort. Some of these islands are large enough for cities and farms and thousands of people. Others are tiny, barely more than a sandbar crowned with a few palm trees. Some are high volcanic islands with dramatic peaks and waterfalls. Others are low coral atolls, flat and peaceful. Together, they form a constellation in the South Pacific, each island a star in a galaxy of tropical beauty. As you drift lower in your mind's eye, floating on warm air, notice something remarkable. Of these 333 islands, only about 110 are inhabited. The rest remain wild, pristine, untouched by permanent human presence. Imagine that, over 200 islands where nature reigns supreme, where seabirds nest undisturbed, where beaches see footprints only when adventurers visit for a day before leaving the island to its solitude again. This emptiness isn't abandonment but preservation. Space left wild, breathing room in a crowded world. Picture those uninhabited islands now. Palm trees swaying with no one to watch, waves breaking on shores where silence is complete, nature conducting its ancient business without human witness. Now let yourself descend further, toward the largest island in this scattered nation. Viti Levu, the name means Great Fiji, is the heart of the archipelago, the biggest island by far, covering over 4,000 square miles. This is where half of Fiji's population lives, where the capital city of Suva sits on the southeastern coast, where the main international airport welcomes travelers from across the world. Viti Levu is large enough for true geography. Mountains in the interior, rivers cutting through valleys, a lush tropical landscape on the eastern windward side and drier conditions to the west in the rain shadow. If Fiji is a constellation, Viti Levu is the brightest star, the anchor around which everything else arranges itself. Picture this island from above, green and mountainous, ringed by coral reefs, its coastline intricate with bays and peninsulas, clouds gathering over its central highlands. This is the foundation of Fiji, the island that supports a nation. Feel yourself relaxing even more deeply as you consider Fiji's unique position in the Pacific. The islands sit at a crossroads of the ocean, almost exactly between the Americas and Asia, north of New Zealand, east of Australia. Ancient Polynesians, Melanesians, and Micronesians all passed through these waters, and their descendants remain in Fiji's diverse population. The islands have always been a meeting place, a hub, a point where different currents of humanity have flowed together. For this reason, Fiji is often called the heart of the Pacific, not because it's at the geographic center, but because it serves as the emotional and cultural center, the place where the Pacific's many peoples have mixed and mingled, creating something beautifully unique. Imagine Fiji as that heart, beating steadily in the chest of the Pacific, pumping life and culture and warmth outward in all directions, drawing travelers inward from every corner of the ocean. Now let yourself sink beneath the surface of the water surrounding these islands, and prepare to witness something extraordinary. The waters around Fiji are famous throughout the diving world, considered some of the planet's finest for one specific reason: soft corals. While many reefs are dominated by hard corals, the brain corals, staghorn corals, massive boulder-like formations, Fiji's reefs explode with soft corals, those flowing, swaying, impossibly colorful gardens that look more like flowers than marine life. Purple soft corals, orange ones, pink, yellow, red. Entire underwater hillsides covered in what looks like bouquets of flowing silk, waving in the current like fields of wildflowers in a breeze. These soft corals thrive in Fiji's strong currents, which bring nutrients flowing past their polyps, feeding them, allowing them to grow in such abundance that divers surface speaking in reverent whispers about the beauty they've witnessed. Picture yourself floating weightless over these gardens, watching purple sea fans sway, seeing orange soft corals bend and flow, the whole reef moving like it's breathing, alive and dancing in the gentle current. This abundance of soft coral has earned Fiji a title recognized around the world. The islands are known as the soft coral capital of the world, a crown worn with pride by this small nation. Divers travel from every continent to swim through Fiji's underwater gardens, to photograph these reefs, to witness colors and forms found nowhere else in such profusion. The waters here are warm year-round, clear enough to see 100 feet, full of fish that weave through the coral gardens in schools of yellow, blue, silver. Sharks glide past, reef sharks, harmless and elegant. Sea turtles paddle slowly through the blue. Eagle rays soar overhead like underwater birds. But it's the soft corals that make Fiji's reefs legendary, that create scenes so beautiful they seem painted by an artist who believed reality needed more color, more movement, more impossible beauty. Let this image fill your mind. An underwater hillside completely covered in flowing soft corals, each one a different color, all of them swaying together in the current. A symphony of color and motion, silent and perfect and somehow healing just to witness. As you float in this underwater garden, feeling more relaxed with each breath, bring your awareness to the people who call these islands home. The Fijian people are famous throughout the Pacific for their warmth, their friendliness, their genuine hospitality. They greet visitors with bula, pronounced bula, a word that means hello but carries so much more meaning. Life, health, happiness, a blessing and a welcome all rolled into one enthusiastic greeting. To be greeted with bula is to be wrapped in verbal sunshine, to be told that your presence brings joy, that you are welcome here, that life is good and we're happy to share it with you. This warmth isn't performed for tourists. It's genuine, woven into the culture, part of what it means to be Fijian. Families open their homes to strangers. Villages welcome visitors with elaborate ceremonies. Children wave at passing cars, their faces bright with smiles. There's a gentleness here, a genuine kindness that transforms a beautiful place into something more, into home, even for people who've just arrived. Picture yourself being greeted on a Fijian beach, local people approaching with huge smiles, their arms open, their voices calling Beulah, Beulah, and meaning it with their whole hearts, welcoming you not as a tourist but as a guest, as someone whose arrival makes their day a little brighter. And finally, as you drift even closer to sleep, traveling back through time, understand the relatively recent moment when modern Fiji was born. On October 10, 1970, Fiji gained its independence from Britain, becoming a sovereign nation after nearly a century of colonial rule. The Union Jack was lowered, the new Fijian flag was raised, and the islands became masters of their own destiny. This independence is still fresh in memory. Many Fijians alive today remember colonialism, remember the transition, remember the pride and hope of that October day when their nation became truly theirs. The date is celebrated each year with festivals, ceremonies, and reflection. Independence brought challenges, every new nation faces them. But it also brought freedom, self-determination, the chance to chart their own course. Modern Fiji is young as nations go, still finding its way, still defining what it means to be Fijian in the 21st century. But the islands themselves are ancient. The people's connection to this land stretches back millennia, and independence simply formalized what was always true. These islands belong to the people who love them, who care for them, who call them home. Rest now with these opening images. 333 islands scattered like stars, most of them wild and untouched, anchored by the great island of Viti Levu, sitting at the heart of the Pacific, surrounded by waters filled with gardens of soft coral waving in the current. Home to people whose greeting wraps you in warmth, a young nation with ancient roots finding its place in the modern world. Feel yourself floating in those warm waters, surrounded by color, greeted with genuine joy, welcomed home to a place you've never been but somehow recognize. You are safe here. You are wanted here. The islands embrace you. Let go now. Let the current carry you. Let Fiji hold you as you drift deeper into sleep, toward dreams painted in the colors of soft coral, warmed by the sun, blessed by the genuine smiles of people who greet life itself with Beulah. Your breathing is slower now, deeper, each exhale releasing more tension. Let yourself sink further into comfort as we continue our journey through Fiji, where time itself bends in unexpected ways. Drift now from the great island of Viti Levu to its sister across the northern waters. Vanua Levu, meaning big land, is Fiji's second largest island, covering about 2,000 square miles of mountains, forests, and quiet coastlines. While Viti Levu bustles with most of the nation's activity, Vanua Levu remains quieter, more remote, less touched by modern development. Here, life moves even more slowly, villages are smaller and more traditional, and visitors are fewer. The island is split by mountain ranges running down its spine, creating the same pattern as Viti Levu, lush rainforest on the eastern side where trade winds bring moisture, and drier conditions on the western shores in the rain shadow. Picture this island as Viti Levu's quieter sibling, content to let the bigger island take center stage while it goes about its business in peaceful obscurity. On Vanua Levu, you can walk for hours without seeing another tourist, swim on beaches where your footprints are the only ones, experience Fiji as it was decades ago, before the world discovered its beauty. Let this image of the quieter island relax you further. A place where silence is treasure, where nature still dominates, where time has agreed to move just a little bit slower. Now open your mind to something remarkable, something that makes Fiji truly unique in the world. The 180th meridian, the international date line, passes directly through the Fijian archipelago. This invisible line, the point where today becomes tomorrow and yesterday becomes today, runs right through these islands. Technically, the date line zigzags to keep island groups together in the same day. But Fiji straddles this temporal boundary, sitting at the edge where the world's calendar turns over. This means Fiji is one of the first places on Earth to see each new day, one of the first to greet each sunrise, one of the first to step into tomorrow while much of the world still lives in yesterday. Think about that as you drift towards sleep. In Fiji, you're closer to tomorrow than almost anywhere else, standing at the threshold of the future, watching the sun rise on days that haven't yet dawned in America, in Europe, in most of the world. There's something magical about being among the first to receive each new day, as if Fiji serves as the planet's alarm clock, the place that wakes up first and whispers to the rest of the world that it's time to begin again. Picture yourself standing on a Fijian beach at sunrise, knowing that most of humanity still sleeps in yesterday, that you're standing in tomorrow, greeting a day that hasn't reached most people yet. Let this image of standing at the edge of time lull you deeper. Time is flexible here, gentle, less urgent when you live where yesterday and tomorrow meet. Feel yourself drifting back through time now, back through centuries, to the first people who found these islands and made them home. Around 3,500 years ago, a group of remarkable voyagers arrived in Fiji. The Lapita people, named after a distinctive pottery style they created, were among the world's greatest seafarers. They had already spread across the Pacific from Southeast Asia, island hopping eastward, navigating by stars and currents and bird flights, carrying their culture in double-hulled canoes. When they reached Fiji, they found islands rich with resources, waters full of fish, land suitable for the taro and yams they brought with them. They settled, they thrived, and their descendants became the indigenous Fijian people who still call these islands home. These Lapita voyagers were scientists, artists, navigators, farmers. They brought pottery so beautiful museums treasure it thousands of years later. They developed sophisticated fishing techniques. They created social structures that would endure for millennia. Picture those first canoes arriving, perhaps making landfall on Viti Levu's coast. The voyagers stepping onto sand no human had touched before. Their children running onto the beach, already calling it home, beginning a story that continues today, 3,500 years later, an unbroken chain of connection to these islands stretching back through 140 generations. Let that ancient arrival comfort you. These islands have welcomed humans for so long, have cradled so many generations, have held countless people in their embrace just as they now hold you in this moment. Now bring your awareness to how traditional Fijian society organized itself, a structure that still exists today beneath and alongside modern government. Fijian villages are led by chiefs, taraga, who inherit their position through family lineage, their authority recognized by centuries of tradition. The chief is not a dictator but a father figure, responsible for the village's welfare, mediating disputes, making decisions that affect the community, preserving traditions and customs. The chief's word carries weight, and respect for chiefs is woven deep into Fijian culture. You don't simply walk into a village without presenting yourself to the chief, seeking permission, showing proper respect. This chiefly system creates stability, continuity, a connection to the past that grounds communities even as the modern world swirls around them. When a chief speaks at a village meeting, Even the youngest children fall silent. When a chief welcomes visitors, those visitors know they've been truly accepted. The system isn't perfect, no human system is, but it provides something valuable that modern democracies often lack: clear connection to tradition, respect for elders and wisdom, a sense that the community's history and future are held in trusted hands. Picture a Fijian chief sitting cross-legged on a woven mat in a village meeting house, his presence commanding without demanding, his quiet authority based not on force but on generations of trust. The community gathered around him, listening, knowing that decisions made here will honor both tradition and necessity. Let this image of stable, time-honored leadership calm you. Some things don't need to change. Some structures have proven their worth across centuries, and in their permanence there is peace. Feel your body growing heavier now, more relaxed, as we turn to one of Fiji's most sacred and important ceremonies. Kava, called yakona in Fijian, is more than a drink. It's a ritual, a bond, a gateway to connection and conversation. Kava is made from the root of the pepper plant, dried and ground into powder, then mixed with water in a large wooden bowl called a tanoa. The resulting drink is gray-brown, earthy, slightly bitter, and mildly sedating. When you drink kava, your lips and tongue go pleasantly numb, your body relaxes, your mind becomes calm but clear, conversation flows more easily. But kava's real importance isn't its mild effects, it's the ceremony surrounding it. The preparation and serving of kava follows strict protocols. The tanoa sits in a place of honor, often decorated with shells. A person serves the kava in a bailo, half a coconut shell, presenting it with both hands, clapping before and after drinking, saying bula. The first bailo is always offered to the highest-ranking person present, often the chief. Everyone participates. The ceremony binds the group together, marks important occasions, welcomes visitors, seals agreements. Villages hold kava ceremonies in the evening, men gathering in the nakamal or meeting house, sitting in a circle around the tanoa, drinking and talking for hours in the dim light. The kava creating a space where status temporarily dissolves and honest conversation becomes possible. Picture yourself sitting in that circle, the tanoa gleaming in the center, accepting a bailo with both hands, clapping once, drinking the earthy liquid in a single draught, feeling your lips tingle, your shoulders drop, the group welcoming you into their circle, into their evening, into their community through this shared ritual that's been performed the same way for centuries. Let the image of that kava ceremony relax you now. The ritual calm, the communal peace, the gentle sedation, the feeling of being welcomed into something ancient and meaningful. Breathe slowly and consider the beautiful complexity of modern Fiji's people. The population is wonderfully diverse, primarily composed of two major groups living side by side. Indigenous Fijians, descendants of those Lapita voyagers from 3,500 years ago, make up slightly over half the population. But nearly 40% are Indo-Fijians, descendants of Indians brought to Fiji by British colonizers in the late 1800s and early 1900s to work sugar plantations. These Indo-Fijians have been in Fiji for 5 or 6 generations now. It's their home just as much as anyone's, and they've enriched Fijian culture immeasurably. You see it in the food. Fijian curries are legendary, blending Indian spices with Pacific ingredients. You hear it in the languages spoken, Hindi, Tamil, and Urdu alongside Fijian and English. You see it in the festivals, Diwali celebrated alongside Christian holidays and traditional Fijian ceremonies. You see it in the faces on the streets, the names on businesses, the way two very different cultures have learned to coexist, mostly peacefully, creating something unique. Pacific Islands with a significant South Asian population, Hindu temples near Christian churches, curry shops beside fresh fish markets. This diversity hasn't always been easy. There have been tensions, political struggles, moments of conflict, but it's created a Fiji that's richer, more complex, more interesting than it would be if just one culture dominated. Picture a street market in Suva, indigenous Fijian women selling taro and cassava, sitting beside Indo-Fijian vendors offering spices and sweets, a Methodist church visible in one direction, a Hindu temple in another, a Muslim mosque down a side street, everyone greeting each other with Beulah or Namaste, languages and cultures mixing like colors in water, distinct but blending, creating something new while honoring what came before. Let your mind now attend to the sound of the Fijian language itself, melodious and warm. Fijian, Itauke or Ene Vosa Vakaviti in the language itself, is an Austronesian language related to Hawaiian, Samoan, Tahitian, and Maori, though speakers of those languages wouldn't necessarily understand Fijian without study. The language has a beautiful sound, full of vowels, syllables flowing into each other like water. Some consonants are soft. B is pronounced somewhere between English B and MB, creating a gentle, almost hummed quality. The C is pronounced TH as in that, so Fiji in Fijian is written Viti, but the C in other words sounds like TH. The Q is pronounced ing as in sing, which surprises English speakers. But these pronunciation quirks create a language that sounds like singing, like wind through palm fronds, like waves on sand, gentle, musical, soothing. Common words and phrases feel good in the mouth. Vinaka, VNAHK, means thank you. Mos, MOH Tai, means goodbye or good night. Kerakir, Kere Tre, is a polite way to ask for something. Even without knowing what the words mean, just hearing Fijian spoken is calming. The soft consonants and flowing vowels creating a soundscape that matches the island's gentle nature. Picture yourself listening to Fijians conversing, not understanding the words but feeling the warmth in them, the musicality, the way the language itself seems designed for kindness, for connection, for saying things gently even when the topic might be serious. Let the imagined sound of Fijian voices lull you. Soft, musical, warm as the tropical air, each word a small melody. And finally, as you drift toward the edge of sleep, picture the traditional Fijian house, the architectural expression of island living perfected over millennia. The Bure, pronounced Mboo-Ray, is a masterpiece of practical design. Built with a high, steeply pitched thatched roof that sheds tropical rain instantly and creates a cool pocket of air inside. The Bure has walls made of woven bamboo or none at all, just corner posts supporting the roof. The floor is raised, covered with woven mats. There's no need for windows. The walls are open or easily opened, allowing breezes to flow through constantly. The materials are all local: hardwood posts, bamboo walls, dried palm fronds or reeds for thatching, woven coconut fiber for lashing everything together. A traditional Bure can be built by a village in days, using no nails or modern materials, just skills passed down through generations. Inside, it's cool even on hot days, the high roof and open walls creating natural air conditioning. During storms, panels can be lowered to protect the interior, but normally the Bure lives in harmony with its environment, not shutting nature out but inviting it in, existing as part of the landscape rather than as something imposed upon it. Modern Fijian homes are often built in Western style, but many resorts feature luxury burs, traditional in design but fitted with modern amenities, and some villages still build and maintain traditional burs for ceremonies and communal gatherings. Picture yourself lying on a mat in a Bure at night, the walls open to the darkness, trade winds flowing through, the sound of the ocean nearby, the thatch roof invisible above you but felt as shelter, protection without confinement. home without walls, the simplest possible dwelling that contains everything you actually need. A roof, a floor, the breeze, and peace. Let this image of the Bure carry you deeper into rest. Shelter that doesn't separate you from the world but integrates you into it. Protection that doesn't isolate but connects. Home that's barely there yet completely sufficient. Rest now with these gifts from Fiji. The quiet beauty of Vanuatu, the magic of living where time zones meet, the ancient arrival of the first people, the wisdom of chiefs guiding communities, the sacred kava ceremony creating connection, the rich diversity of peoples sharing these islands, the musical flow of the Fijian language, and the perfect simplicity of the Bure opening itself to the breeze. Feel yourself in that traditional house, walls open, trade winds flowing through, the sound of Fijian voices in the distance speaking in their musical tongue, knowing you're among the first in the world to greet tomorrow, held by islands that have sheltered humans for 3,500 years, welcomed into a circle where kava flows and barriers dissolve. You are safe. You are welcome. You are home in Fiji, and Fiji is home in you. Let go. Let the breeze carry you. Let tomorrow arrive while you sleep. Beulah, dear traveler, life is good. Rest is deserved. Sleep is here. You are so relaxed now, your body heavy and warm, your mind drifting like a leaf on gentle water. Let Fiji continue to unfold before you, each detail another invitation to sink deeper into peace. Imagine now that you're sitting in a Fijian village, and the chief is receiving an important visitor. In his hands, he holds an object of profound significance, something so valuable it transcends money or material worth. This is a tabua, a polished whale's tooth, yellowed with age, strung on woven cord, curved like a crescent moon. The tabua is Fiji's most sacred ceremonial object, used for the most important occasions. Asking forgiveness, requesting a favor, proposing marriage, welcoming distinguished guests, making peace after conflict. When a tabua is presented, it's done with great formality and a speech explaining its purpose. The recipient accepts it with equal ceremony, understanding that this gift carries weight beyond its physical form. It carries obligation, respect, connection. Tabua were traditionally obtained through trade with Tonga, where sperm whales were hunted, making them rare and precious. Today, most tabua are family heirlooms, passed down through generations, accumulating history and mana with each ceremonial use. To present a tabua is to offer something of yourself, to make yourself vulnerable, to say that this moment, this request, this relationship matters more than treasure. Picture that polished whale tooth resting on a woven mat between two people, its presence transforming a conversation into something sacred, its weight, both literal and spiritual, pressing the moment into memory. Let this image of the tabua settle into your consciousness like a blessing. Some gifts cannot be measured in money. Some exchanges happen at a level deeper than commerce, and in recognizing this, we touch something eternal. Feel the gentle fabric against your skin now, comfortable and cool in the tropical heat. The sulu, pronounced Soolu, is the traditional Fijian garment, similar to a sarong, worn by both men and women. For men, it's typically wrapped around the waist and falls to just below the knee, secured with a simple knot or a belt. Women's sulu are often longer, sometimes ankle length, and may be wrapped in various styles. The fabric can be plain or printed with colorful patterns, flowers, geometric designs, traditional motifs. In villages, sulu are standard daily wear, practical in the heat, easy to move in, simple to wash and dry. In cities, men often wear sulu to the office, pairing them with dress shirts and shoes, a perfect blend of traditional and modern, professional yet comfortable. Some occasions require formal sulu in specific colors or patterns. The beauty of the sulu is its simplicity. It's just a length of fabric, yet it can be elegant or casual, formal or everyday, depending on how it's worn and what it's paired with. Like the pareo in Polynesia, the sulu is democracy in clothing, affordable, comfortable, suitable for everyone, regardless of body type or age. Picture yourself wrapped in a sulu, the light fabric moving with the breeze, your legs free to move, the tropical heat no longer oppressive because you're dressed in harmony with the climate, not fighting it with Western clothes designed for temperate weather. Let this image of simple, perfect clothing relax you further. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones, the answers that work with nature rather than against it. Now bring your attention to your stomach and imagine you're about to experience a feast prepared in the most ancient and flavorful way possible. The lovo, pronounced L-O-V-O, is Fiji's traditional earth oven, similar to the ahimare of Polynesia but with its own Fijian character. A pit is dug in the earth and lined with stones. A fire burns over these stones for hours until they're scorching hot. Then the fire is swept away, and the food is arranged on the hot stones. Whole fish wrapped in banana leaves, chicken, pork, root vegetables like taro and cassava, breadfruit, sometimes palusami, taro leaves cooked in coconut cream, wrapped in parcels. Everything is covered with more banana leaves, then canvas or cloth, then buried under earth to seal in all the heat and moisture. For 3 to 4 hours, the lovo cooks underground, the food steaming in its own juices, taking on a smoky, earthy flavor that no modern oven can replicate. When the lovo is finally opened, clouds of aromatic steam rise into the air, and the feast that emerges is tender, flavorful, infused with the taste of earth and fire and tradition. The meat falls off the bone. The fish flakes at the touch of a fork. The root vegetables are creamy and sweet. Everything tastes more intense, more real, more connected to the land it came from. Villages prepare lovo for celebrations, for Sunday after church, for important gatherings. Some tourist hotels offer lovo feasts, but the best ones happen in villages, where the preparation is as much ceremony as cooking, where everyone participates in burying and unearthing the food, where the meal is shared communally, everyone eating together. Picture yourself sitting on a mat, banana leaf serving as your plate, food from the lovo still steaming before you, the taste of earth and smoke and coconut mixing in your mouth, nourishment that connects you to the ground beneath you, to the fire that cooked it, to the community that prepared and shares it. Let the imagined smell and taste of lovo food comfort you. This is eating as it was meant to be, food as connection to land and people, meals as ceremony and communion. Feel the warmth on your skin now, constant and gentle. Fiji basks in a tropical maritime climate, where temperatures remain pleasantly warm year-round, ranging between 75 and 88 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no winter here, no autumn chill, no spring awakening. Every season is summer, though summer perfected, warm but rarely oppressively hot, cooled by ocean breezes, moderated by the surrounding sea. The islands do have a wet season from November to April and a dry season from May to October, but even wet season doesn't mean constant rain. Showers tend to be brief and often fall at night, leaving the days mostly sunny, the air humid and warm. The dry season brings slightly cooler temperatures and clearer skies, making it the preferred time for tourists. But locals will tell you that every season in Fiji is beautiful. Every month offers sunshine and warmth. The temperature of the ocean matches the air, bathwater warm, hovering around 77 to 84 degrees depending on the season. You never need a wetsuit to swim here. You never hesitate before entering the water. The lagoons are like enormous heated pools, maintained at perfect temperature by the tropical sun and the warm currents flowing from the north. This constant warmth, this eternal summer, changes how you live. You spend more time outside, you move more slowly, you wear less clothing, you swim on a whim at any hour, you sleep with windows open, you wake to warmth and go to bed in warmth, your body never tensing against cold, never bracing for temperature change. Picture yourself in this climate, your body temperature perfectly matched to the air around you. No goosebumps, no shivering, no overheating, just constant, gentle warmth like being held in a loving embrace that never ends, never cools, never varies by more than a few degrees. Let that warmth sink into your imagination now, your body relaxing completely because there's no temperature to fight, no climate to defend against, just endless, gentle, perfect warmth. Listen now to the sounds drifting across the village in the evening. Traditional Fijian music fills the air, created with instruments that have been played for centuries. The lolly, a hollowed wooden drum, provides the heartbeat, struck with sticks to create deep, resonant tones that carry for miles. The sound is hypnotic, primal, calling people to gather, marking ceremonies, sending messages across distances. Different rhythms mean different things. A call to meeting, an announcement of celebration, a warning. Alongside the lolly, you might hear the kobo, a conch shell trumpet, its long, mournful note cutting through the tropical air, traditionally used to announce arrivals or important events. And voices, always voices. Fijians are natural singers, their harmonies rich and complex. Choirs are common, church music is powerful, and traditional chants called meek tell stories through a combination of singing, chanting, and movement. The meek is part song, part dance, part theater, with performers enacting legends and history while musicians provide rhythm and melody. Men's meek are powerful and warlike, with aggressive movements and deep chanting. Women's meek are graceful, with flowing hand movements and higher-pitched singing. Both are mesmerizing, the voices blending in harmonies that seem impossible from untrained singers, the rhythms complex and driving, the whole performance creating a trance-like state in both performers and audience. Picture yourself sitting in a village at dusk, the lolly beginning its rhythmic beating, voices rising in harmony, the meek dancers beginning to move, their bodies telling stories older than written language, the music surrounding you like water, pulling you into its rhythm, your own heartbeat starting to match the drum, your own breath falling into the pattern of the singers. Let that rhythm enter you now, boom boom tap, voices rising and falling, the ancient pulse of the islands beating through your chest, your breathing slowing to match, your body finding the rhythm, your mind quieting to just this sound, just this moment, just this eternal beat. Feel your body now filled with energy you didn't know you had, moving with purpose and passion. Rugby is Fiji's national obsession, the sport that unites the nation, that brings villages together around radio broadcasts, that creates heroes and legends. Fijian rugby is famous worldwide for its style. Fast, creative, unpredictable, thrilling. Fijian players seem to have an innate understanding of the game, an ability to improvise and create opportunities from nothing, to make passes that shouldn't be possible, to run angles that defy logic. The Fiji Sevens team, playing the faster, seven-player version of rugby, has dominated world competitions for decades, winning Olympic gold in 2016 when rugby returned to the Olympics, a moment of national celebration so intense the entire country seemed to explode with joy. When the team returned home, they were greeted as conquering heroes, with ceremonies and celebrations in every village. Rugby is more than sport in Fiji. It's an expression of national identity, a source of pride, a way for a small island nation to compete on the world stage and win. Young boys grow up playing rugby on village fields, dreaming of representing their nation. The sport teaches teamwork, discipline, courage. It provides opportunities for young Fijians to travel, to earn money, to make names for themselves. And the style of play, that creative, flowing, joyful approach, reflects something essentially Fijian. The ability to make something beautiful out of the game, to find joy in competition, to play with both fierce commitment and infectious happiness. Picture a rugby match on a village field, boys and young men running barefoot on grass, passing the ball with impossible precision, laughing even as they tackle each other. The whole village watching and cheering, old men offering advice, children mimicking the moves on the sidelines. Let this image of joyful physicality energize you even as you relax. There's a place for both rest and motion, for peace and passion, and Fiji understands how to hold both at once. Now let yourself drift westward from the main islands to a chain of pure paradise. The Yasawa Islands stretch in a long line northwest of Viti Levu, a string of volcanic islands of stunning beauty. These are the islands of your dreams. Dramatic volcanic peaks rising straight from turquoise waters, beaches of white sand untouched except by footprints, lagoons so clear you can see fish swimming 30 feet below, snorkeling and diving that rivals anywhere in the world. The Yasawas are less developed than the main islands, more remote, more pristine. Some islands have small backpacker resorts, others host luxury properties, but none are overdeveloped. All maintain that sense of being far from civilization, dropped into another world where nature dominates. The movie The Blue Lagoon was filmed here. Those 1980 scenes of teenage castaways on a perfect desert island. Those were the Yasawas, and they look exactly like that in real life, no exaggeration needed. Island hopping through the Yasawas is a journey through escalating beauty. Each island somehow more stunning than the last, each beach more perfect, each sunset more impossible. Villages in the Yasawas maintain traditional lifestyles more than in other parts of Fiji. Subsistence fishing and farming, communal living, ceremonies and customs preserved because tourism hasn't overwhelmed them. Visitors to the Yasawas often describe the experience as transformative, as stepping out of modern life entirely, as finding a piece of earth that hasn't changed in essential ways for centuries. Picture yourself standing on a Yasawa beach, volcanic peaks rising behind you. Water so clear and blue it seems artificial. No sound but waves and wind and your own breathing. No other people visible in any direction. Just you and the island and the sea and the perfection of this moment. Let that image of pristine beauty fill your mind. There are still places like this in the world. Still beaches no one else stands on. Still islands that exist for their own sake. And Fiji holds some of them in its protective embrace. And finally, as sleep draws very near, witness something that seems impossible. Something that makes you question what you're seeing. In certain Fijian villages, particularly on the island of Bika, there exists the ancient practice of fire walking, walking barefoot across stones heated to over 600 degrees Fahrenheit, so hot they glow in the darkness, hot enough to melt metal. The firewalkers of Fiji belong to specific families who've practiced this ceremony for generations, claiming their power comes from an ancestral pact with a spirit god. The ceremony begins with preparation, building a large fire over a pit of stones, letting it burn for hours until the stones are scorching. Then the fire is swept away, and the stones are spread flat, creating a glowing bed of heat. The firewalkers, having fasted and participated in purification ceremonies, walk across these stones, not running, but walking steadily, deliberately, sometimes standing still on the burning rocks. They emerge unburned, their feet showing no blisters, no damage, no sign they've just walked across heat that should destroy flesh instantly. Scientists have studied this phenomenon, offering various explanations: the Leidenfrost effect, calloused feet, quick movement, moisture. but none fully explain what observers witness. Men standing calmly on glowing stones hot enough to cook food, walking across them repeatedly, emerging unharmed. The firewalkers themselves say it's faith, preparation, and the protection of their ancestors. Tourists can watch firewalking ceremonies at some resorts, but the most powerful ceremonies happen in the villages, where the ritual is spiritual practice, not entertainment, where the firewalkers are fulfilling sacred duty passed down through their family lines. Picture those glowing stones in the darkness, the heat shimmering the air above them. A man stepping onto that impossible surface and walking calmly across, emerging on the other side, his feet examined by witnesses who find them cool and unharmed, the mystery unexplained, the power undeniable. Let this image of firewalking settle into your dreaming mind, not as something to understand but as something to accept, a reminder that the world contains mysteries, that some things transcend explanation, that Fiji holds not just physical beauty but spiritual power, forces older than science, truths that don't require understanding to be real. Rest now with these deeper truths of Fiji, the sacred weight of the tabua connecting souls across ceremony, the simple perfection of the sulu worn in harmony with the climate, food cooked in the earth itself by fire and time, eternal summer warming your bones, the lolly drum beating out the island's heartbeat, rugby played with fierce joy, the pristine yasawas floating in untouched beauty, and firewalkers moving across impossibility on faith and ancestral protection. Feel yourself wrapped in a sulu, lavo feast warming your stomach, drums beating in your chest, rugby's energy in your limbs, standing on a yasawa beach, holding a tabua, watching firewalkers step onto glowing stones without fear, understanding that Fiji is a place where the impossible happens daily, where beauty and mystery coexist, where you are always, always safe. Let these images carry you across the threshold. The stones are hot, but you are protected. The drums beat, but you are peaceful. The feast is prepared, and you are welcome. Sleep now. Beulah. Life is good. Rest is here. Tomorrow will wait. The islands hold you. Sleep. Your eyelids are so heavy now, barely able to open even if you wanted to. Your body has melted into the softness beneath you. Let Fiji continue to wrap around you like warm water, each fact another layer of comfort drawing you deeper into rest. Feel now the texture beneath your fingers, slightly rough, organic, alive with pattern and meaning. This is masi, Fiji's traditional bark cloth, known elsewhere in the Pacific as tapa. For centuries, Fijian women have created this cloth through a process that transforms trees into art. The paper mulberry tree is cultivated specifically for this purpose. When the saplings reach the right size, they're harvested, and the inner bark is stripped away. This bark is soaked in water, then beaten on a wooden anvil with a special beater, the rhythmic tapping echoing through the village as the bark slowly spreads and thins, fibers interlocking, becoming cloth without weaving, without thread, just beaten plant matter becoming fabric through patience and skill. Once the pieces are large enough, they're glued together using starch from cassava or arrowroot, creating larger sheets. Then comes the decoration, traditionally done freehand or by pressing the cloth against a stencil carved into a board, applying natural dyes made from soot, clay, and plant materials. The patterns are geometric, bold, meaningful. Each design element carries significance, tells stories, marks identity. Masi was traditionally worn as clothing, used for ceremonies, presented as gifts of honor. Today, it's still made in some villages, still used for important ceremonies, weddings, funerals, welcoming chiefs. The sound of masi being beaten, tap 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 tap, is the sound of tradition being preserved, each strike of the beater a word in a conversation spanning centuries. Picture a group of women sitting together in the shade, bark cloth spread before them, beaters rising and falling in rhythm, their conversation flowing as easily as their work, creating beauty and utility simultaneously. Their hands knowing what to do without thinking because their grandmother's hands knew, and their grandmother's grandmothers, back and back through time. Let that rhythmic tapping lull you, tap 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 tap, steady as a heartbeat, patient as the process itself, the sound of creation, of preservation, of women's work that holds culture together like those glued pieces of bark cloth becoming one strong piece. Now expand your awareness to the northern reaches of Fiji, to a wonder that rivals even the famous soft corals. The Great Sea Reef, also called Kakolevu Reef, stretches for over 125 miles along the northern coast of Vanuatu and surrounding waters, making it the third longest continuous barrier reef in the world, after Australia's Great Barrier Reef and the reef system in New Caledonia. This massive reef system is less famous than its Australian cousin, which means it's less studied, less protected, and less visited, but also less damaged, more pristine in many areas. The Great Sea Reef is a biodiversity hotspot, home to countless species of coral, fish, sharks, rays, and marine mammals. Its lagoons provide crucial nursery habitat for juvenile fish. Its structure protects coastlines from erosion and storm surge. Local communities depend on it for fishing, for protein, for their livelihoods. But the reef faces threats: climate change warming the waters, overfishing depleting stocks, coastal development affecting water quality. Conservation efforts are growing, with communities and scientists working together to protect this underwater treasure. For divers and snorkelers, the Great Sea Reef offers experiences as spectacular as anywhere in Fiji, with the added thrill of exploring waters fewer tourists have seen. Diving sites where you might be one of a handful of people who've ever witnessed this particular coral garden, this specific gathering of fish. Picture this reef from above. A pale blue-green line stretching across deep blue ocean, 125 miles of living structure, billions of coral polyps working together to build this massive barrier, creating habitat, protecting shores, providing food, existing as one of the planet's great living structures, quietly doing its work in the northern Pacific, largely unknown to the wider world but absolutely essential to Fiji, to the ocean, to the intricate web of life that depends on healthy reefs. Let the scale of this reef humble you, let its patient growth, millimeters per year, remind you that the most important work is often slow, steady, unnoticed until you step back and see the full magnitude of what's been built. Feel time shifting slightly now, bending in that peculiar way it does in this part of the Pacific. Fiji operates on Fiji Standard Time, which places it at GMT plus 12 hours ahead of Greenwich Mean Time. This means Fiji is living deeply in tomorrow compared to most of the world. When it's noon in London, it's midnight in Fiji, already the next day. When it's morning in New York, Fiji is preparing for bed. Having already lived through most of the day, New York is just beginning. And during Fiji's summer months, from November to January, the country observes daylight saving time, pushing to GMT plus 13, making it one of the furthest ahead time zones on the planet. In this configuration, Fiji is 13 hours ahead of London, 18 hours ahead of New York, living so far in tomorrow that it's almost circling back toward yesterday. This extreme position in time zones creates interesting situations. You can call someone in Fiji and wish them Happy New Year before your own New Year has arrived, can get news from them about events that haven't yet reached your time zone, can feel like you're communicating with the future. For travelers, it means jet lag hits differently. You don't just change time zones. You change days, arriving in tomorrow, your body confused about whether it's been traveling for 12 hours or 36, your sense of time thoroughly scrambled. But there's something magical about this temporal displacement, this living at the leading edge of the world's rotation, greeting each new day before almost anyone else, standing in tomorrow while most of humanity still inhabits today. Let this temporal flexibility relax you. Time is more fluid than we usually acknowledge, more bendable, less fixed. In Fiji, you live in tomorrow. In dreams, you live outside time entirely. Let yourself slip from one state to the other, from tomorrow into timelessness, from the clock into the eternal now of sleep. Picture yourself now on a traditional Fijian boat, sleek and fast, cutting through the lagoon. The kamikau, pronounced Tche Makau, is Fiji's traditional outrigger canoe, and it's a marvel of engineering refined over thousands of years. Like Polynesian canoes, the kamikau has an outrigger float connected by curved wooden arms, providing stability while keeping the hull narrow and fast. The hull is traditionally carved from a single breadfruit tree trunk, though larger kamikau might have built up sides to increase capacity. The outrigger is always on the left side as you face forward. This is universal in Fijian canoes, part of the tradition that governs their construction and use. Traditional kamikau were propelled by paddles or by triangular sails made from woven pandanus matting. These canoes were essential for fishing, for inter-island travel, for warfare, for every aspect of life in an archipelago where water separates communities but canoes connect them. The skills of building and sailing kamikau are being revived now after decades where they were nearly lost, with master builders teaching younger generations, traditional techniques being documented and preserved. Racing kamikau is a popular sport in Fiji, regattas bringing villages together in friendly competition. The sleek hulls skimming across the water, outrigger floats lifting and dipping as the canoe cuts through waves, paddlers working in perfect synchronization. But you can still see working kamikau too, fishermen using them in the lagoons, the ancient design still perfectly suited to its purpose after 3,500 years. Picture yourself in a kamikau at sunset, paddle in your hands, the outrigger keeping you stable as you glide across calm water, the hull barely seeming to touch the surface, moving with an efficiency and grace that modern boats can't match. Feeling the connection to every person who's ever paddled a kamikau in these waters, part of an unbroken chain stretching back to the Lapita people who first arrived. Let the motion of that paddle lull you. Stroke, glide, rhythmic and efficient, your body working in harmony with the water, the canoe responding to every small adjustment, traveling forward with minimal effort, just like the journey into sleep. Small movements, gentle adjustments, and suddenly you're moving, gliding, traveling without trying. Breathe deeply now and imagine standing before a tree so massive it seems impossible. The banyan tree, known in Fijian as the baka, is one of the most impressive features of Fiji's landscape, and it holds deep cultural and spiritual significance. A banyan doesn't grow like other trees. It starts its life as a seed dropped by a bird onto a host tree. The seed germinates in the host tree's branches and sends roots down toward the ground. These aerial roots thicken and multiply, eventually strangling and killing the host tree, which rots away, leaving the banyan standing on its network of roots-turned trunks. As the banyan grows, it sends down more aerial roots from its spreading branches, each root eventually becoming a new trunk, the tree expanding horizontally as much as vertically, creating a forest from a single tree. A mature banyan can cover an acre or more, with hundreds of trunk-like roots, branches spreading in all directions, creating a cool, shaded space beneath. In Fijian tradition, banyans are considered sacred, inhabited by spirits, not to be cut or harmed. Their gathering places, villages are often centered around ancient banyans, meetings held in their shade, children playing among their roots, the tree serving as the village's living heart. Some banyans in Fiji are centuries old, their original host tree long gone, the banyan now standing alone on its maze of interconnected trunks, a single organism that looks like a dozen trees, a tree that's also a grove, a plant that's also architecture. Sitting beneath a banyan feels different from sitting under other trees. The filtered light has a green quality. The air is cooler, sound is dampened, time seems slower. The tree creates its own microclimate, its own atmosphere, its own world. Picture yourself sitting against one of a banyan's many trunks, the massive canopy spreading above you, roots descending all around like pillars in a natural cathedral. The space simultaneously open and enclosed, public and private. The tree's presence both sheltering and slightly overwhelming, its age making your own lifespan seem like an eye blink. Let the banyan's patient growth calm you. It took decades, maybe centuries, to grow this large, and it will continue growing for decades or centuries more, long after you, long after everyone you know. It will stand, slowly expanding, patiently adding roots, creating shelter, being home to spirits and birds and the village it protects. There's no hurry. There's never been hurry. Growth happens at its own pace. Rest happens when you're ready. The banyan simply exists, and that existence is enough. Feel the needles now, ancient and precise, marking skin with meaning. Traditional Fijian tattooing, vaikia, was practiced for centuries before European contact, and it's experiencing a revival as young Fijians reclaim this part of their heritage. Traditional Fijian tattoos were different from Polynesian styles, geometric patterns, primarily worn by women, covering hands, arms, thighs, with each design element carrying meaning. The process was painful. Needles made from bone or thorns, tapped into skin with a small mallet, ink made from soot mixed with water or oil. The designs marked important life transitions, signified status, enhanced beauty, connected the wearer to ancestors and tradition. Men's tattoos were less extensive but still significant, often around the waist or on the arms, marking achievements or status. With colonization and Christianity, tattooing was discouraged, nearly died out entirely. The knowledge preserved only in old photographs and the memories of the last generation who remembered. But in recent decades, young Fijians have sought out the remaining elders who remember the old patterns, have studied photographs and museum collections, have begun receiving traditional tattoos again, reclaiming this practice as an assertion of identity and cultural pride. Modern tattoo artists are incorporating traditional Fijian motifs into contemporary designs, creating a living tradition that honors the past while existing fully in the present. The revival isn't about museum preservation but about making these traditions relevant now, allowing Fijians to carry their heritage literally on their skin, visible and permanent and proud. Picture a young woman's hand, geometric patterns tattooed from wrist to fingertips. The design traditional but the hand holding a smartphone, typing, existing fully in the 21st century while carrying the 18th century on her skin. Time collapsed, tradition and modernity not in conflict but in harmony. The past not dead but alive, not museum piece but living practice. Let this image of revival, of reclamation, of young people reaching back to grab hold of what was almost lost, let it settle into your consciousness. Traditions can be revived, cultural knowledge can be recovered, and the desire to connect with ancestors is eternal, showing up generation after generation, ensuring that nothing is truly lost as long as someone cares enough to remember, to learn, to carry it forward. Now let yourself drift into the shallow, brackish waters where land meets sea, where a unique forest grows. Mangrove forests line many of Fiji's coasts, these remarkable trees that live with their roots in salt water, that thrive in the zone where most plants would die. Mangroves have adapted to survive in conditions that seem impossible. Salty water, oxygen-poor mud, tides that cover and uncover them twice daily. They've developed specialized roots that stick up out of the water like snorkels, breathing for the tree. They filter salt from the water, concentrating it in sacrificial leaves that yellow and drop, carrying the salt away. They give birth to live young. The seeds germinate while still on the tree, dropping into the mud as small plants ready to grow. These adaptations allow mangroves to create forests in the intertidal zone. And these forests are incredibly valuable. Mangrove roots stabilize shorelines, preventing erosion, protecting inland areas from storm surge and waves. They filter pollutants from water flowing from land to sea. They provide crucial nursery habitat for juvenile fish, shrimp, crabs. Many of the fish that live on the reef as adults spent their early days hiding among mangrove roots. They sequester carbon dioxide more efficiently than almost any other ecosystem. And they create a hauntingly beautiful landscape. The twisted roots, the dense green canopy, the way light filters through the leaves to dapple the water below, the quiet except for birds and the gentle lap of tide. Walking through mangroves at low tide is like entering another world. The mud sucking at your feet, crabs skittering away, fish trapped in tidal pools, the smell of salt and life and decay mixing into something primal. Many mangrove forests in Fiji have been cleared for development or aquaculture. But conservation efforts are protecting and replanting them, communities recognizing their value, understanding that these strange trees standing in salt water are worth more standing than cleared. Picture yourself in a kayak, paddling quietly through mangrove channels at high tide, the roots disappearing into dark water below, the canopy meeting overhead, the space tunnel-like and intimate, fish darting between roots, a heron watching from a branch, everything alive and interconnected, the boundary between land and sea not a line but a zone, a gradient, a forest that belongs to both and neither. Let the mangrove's adaptation inspire you. They thrive where they shouldn't. They've found ways to live in impossible conditions. They've turned challenges into advantages. And they provide shelter for countless other lives in the process. There's a lesson there about resilience, about adaptation, about making a home wherever you find yourself. And finally, as you float on the very edge of consciousness, understand the philosophy that governs time in Fiji. Fiji time is not just a joke about lateness. It's a fundamentally different relationship with time itself, a rejection of clock-dominated living in favor of event-dominated living. On Fiji time, things happen when they're ready to happen, when the people involved are ready, when conditions are right, not because a clock says it's time. If a meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. but people are still finishing what they're doing, still arriving, still preparing, then the meeting happens when everyone's there and ready, not at 2 p.m. on the dot. If you're supposed to catch a boat at 10 a.m. but the tide is wrong or the weather uncertain or the boat captain needs to do something first, the boat leaves when it leaves, and you wait without frustration because that's simply how it works. Fiji time can frustrate visitors who come from cultures where punctuality is paramount, where minutes matter, where schedules are sacred. But for Fijians, and for visitors who learn to embrace it, Fiji time is liberation from tyranny, the tyranny of the clock, of the schedule, of the idea that time matters more than readiness, than completion, than the natural rhythm of events. Fiji time says, we'll eat when the food is ready, not when the clock says dinner time. We'll leave when we're packed and the tide is right and everyone's said their goodbyes, not when the schedule says to leave. We'll meet when we're both available and prepared, not at some arbitrary point dictated by a device that knows nothing of our actual lives. This flexibility infuriates some, liberates others, but it's deeply embedded in Fijian culture. Time serves humans, not the other way around. Let this concept of Fiji time seep into your drowsy mind. Right now, there's nowhere you need to be at any specific time, nothing that must happen according to a schedule. Sleep will come when you're ready, when your body is ready, when conditions are right. You can't force it by looking at a clock. You can only relax and let it happen in its own time, on its own schedule, when the tide is right. There is no rush. There has never been any rush. Time is flexible. Sleep is patient. Everything happens when it's meant to happen. Fiji time. Dream time. Your time. All the same. All perfect. All now. Rest now with these final gifts. Marcy cloth beaten by patient hands. The Great Sea Reef stretching 125 miles of living beauty. Time zones placing Fiji in tomorrow. Kamikau canoes gliding across calm water. Ancient banyans creating forests from single trees. Traditional tattoos marking skin with ancestral connection. Mangroves thriving where land meets sea. And Fiji time releasing you from the tyranny of the clock. Feel yourself wrapped in bark cloth, paddling a canoe through mangrove channels, sitting beneath a banyan, living on Fiji time where nothing rushes and everything happens perfectly. The Great Sea Reef builds itself one polyp at a time. The banyan grows one root at a time. The Marcy is beaten one tap at a time. And sleep comes one breath at a time. When you're ready, in its own time, on Fiji time, which is to say, whenever it arrives is exactly when it was meant to arrive. Let go. Let time go. Let consciousness go. Beulah. Tomorrow is already here in Fiji. Stay in tomorrow. Sleep in tomorrow. Rest in the future, where everything has already worked out, where you've already slept perfectly, where rest is complete. The future is now. Sleep is here. Beulah. You are so close to sleep now, consciousness barely flickering like a candle in the gentlest breeze. Your body has forgotten how to feel tension. Let these final whispers from Fiji carry you the rest of the way into dreams. Taste now the flavor that defines Fijian seafood, the dish that appears at every celebration, every beach gathering, every important meal. Kokoda, pronounced Kokonda, is Fiji's national dish, and it captures the essence of the islands in a bowl. Fresh fish, usually mahi-mahi or walu, is cubed into bite-sized pieces and marinated in lime juice, the acid cooking the fish until it turns opaque and firm. Then comes the magic. Thick coconut cream, freshly squeezed from grated coconut, is mixed with the lime-marinated fish. Diced tomatoes, onions, and chilies are added for color and bite. Sometimes cucumber, sometimes capsicum. The result is creamy, tangy, spicy, cool, and refreshing. A perfect dish for tropical heat. Best eaten while sitting on the beach, toes in the sand, the ocean that provided the fish stretching before you. Every family has their own Kokoda recipe, their own proportions, their own secret touches. Some add a pinch of salt, some prefer more chili, some insist on a particular type of fish. But all Kokoda shares that essential character. Fresh, clean, bright flavors that taste like the sea and the coconut grove had a child. Eating Kokoda is eating the island itself. The ocean's gift combined with the land's gift, brought together by human hands and served with love. Picture yourself with a bowl of Kokoda, the coconut cream white and thick, the fish tender and fresh, the lime making your mouth water, the taste so clean and perfect you can't believe something so simple could be so good. Let that flavor settle into your imagination. Fresh, clean, cooling, nourishing. Let it be the last taste in your memory as you drift away. Feel yourself drifting now to Fiji's third largest island, a place of such lush beauty it earned a name that says everything. Taveuni, called the Garden Island, sits in the northern part of the archipelago, smaller than Viti Levu and Vanua Levu but arguably more beautiful than either. Taveuni is extraordinarily fertile, blessed with rich volcanic soil and abundant rainfall, creating an island that's almost aggressively green. Jungle covering the mountains, gardens bursting with flowers and vegetables, waterfalls tumbling down every valley. The island is famous for its hiking, with trails through rainforest so dense and pristine it feels prehistoric, leading to waterfalls where you can swim in pools surrounded by jungle, where the only sounds are water and birds and wind in the trees. Taveuni has something else that makes it unique. The 180th meridian passes directly through the island, meaning you can stand with 1 foot in yesterday and 1 foot in today, straddling the international date line, existing in 2 days at once. A meridian marker sits in the jungle, a photo opportunity for tourists, but also a genuinely strange feeling, standing on that spot, knowing that on a cosmic level, time is different on either side of you, that you're standing at the seam where the calendar stitches together. Taveuni is also known for its flowers, particularly the tajamusha, a rare flower that grows only on Taveuni, only at high elevations, only in certain conditions, a red flower with a white center, considered the most beautiful in Fiji, so rare that seeing one is considered good luck. Picture this garden island. Mountains shrouded in mist, waterfalls everywhere, flowers blooming in impossible profusion, streams running clear and cold from the highlands, and that meridian line running through it all, time itself bending around this island of excessive beauty. Let that image of lushness relax you, a place where nature is so abundant it overwhelms, where green is the dominant color, where water flows freely and flowers bloom without restraint, where the island's generosity makes you understand why ancient people believed in paradise. Listen now to the sound cutting through the evening air, high-pitched squeaking, the rustle of leathery wings. Flying foxes, large fruit bats, are common throughout Fiji, and at dusk they emerge from their daytime roosts in the hundreds, sometimes thousands, filling the sky in their search for food. These aren't small bats but impressively large ones, with wingspans that can reach 3 feet or more, fox-like faces with large eyes and pointed snouts, hence their name. During the day, they hang upside down in trees, often in huge colonies called camps, the trees literally dark with bodies, the sound of their squeaking and bickering audible from far away. But at dusk, the camp erupts, bats launching themselves into the air, wings unfolding, their silhouettes crossing the sunset sky in endless procession, heading out to feed on fruit, nectar, and flowers. Flying foxes are crucial pollinators and seed dispersers, maintaining the health of Fiji's forests, spreading seeds far from the parent trees, pollinating flowers that open at night. Locals have mixed feelings about them. They're fascinating to watch but can damage fruit crops, and in some areas they're hunted for food, their meat considered a delicacy. But in the sky at dusk, they're simply magnificent, their numbers creating the impression of a river of wings flowing overhead, their high-pitched calls filling the air with conversation, the twilight belonging entirely to them for those minutes between day and night. Picture yourself sitting outside as dusk falls, watching the flying foxes stream overhead, wave after wave of them, their wings backlit by the last light in the sky, so many you stop counting, the sky full of life, the night beginning with this eruption of wings and voices. Let that image soothe you, the transition from day to night, the in-between time, the threshold moment when the world changes hands from diurnal to nocturnal creatures, and you're privileged to witness the changing of the guard, the flying foxes taking their shift, owning the night. Feel now the tall stalks swaying in the breeze, green and reaching toward the sun. Sugarcane covers vast areas of Fiji, particularly on Viti Levu and Vanua Levu, and for over a century, sugar has been a crucial part of Fiji's economy. The British brought sugarcane to Fiji in the late 1800s, establishing plantations, and when they couldn't convince enough indigenous Fijians to work the hard, hot labor of the cane fields, they brought indentured laborists from India, which is why Fiji has such a large Indo-Fijian population today. Those indentured laborists eventually became free farmers, leasing land, growing their own cane, creating a life in Fiji. The sugar industry dominated Fiji's economy for decades. Fields of cane stretching to the horizon, mills processing the harvest, ships carrying raw sugar to markets overseas. In recent years, the industry has struggled. Global sugar prices fluctuating, international competition, lease disputes, aging infrastructure. But sugarcane still covers substantial areas, still provides livelihoods for thousands of families, still defines the landscape in many regions. Walking past a cane field, you see the stalks towering over your head, leaves rustling, the sweet smell of growing cane in the air. At harvest time, smoke rises from fields being burned before cutting. The fire clears the leaves and pests, making the cane easier to harvest, the flames consuming the green and leaving blackened stalks that workers cut by hand or machine, loading onto trucks bound for the mills. The sight of a cane fire at night is eerie and beautiful. Orange flames against black sky, the crack and roar of burning leaves, the smoke carrying the sweet smell of burnt sugar. Picture those green fields stretching away, stalks reaching 12 feet high, the wind making them sway in waves like an ocean of grass, and somewhere in those fields, a farmer whose great-grandfather came from India to cut this same cane. Generations tied to these plants, this land, this industry that brought them here and made them Fijian. Let the swaying cane hypnotize you, back and forth, green waves in the wind, rustling and whispering, growing taller slowly, patiently, drawing sweetness from the soil and sun, turning it into substance, into sugar, into sustenance. The whole field moving as one in the breeze like breath, like waves, like sleep itself approaching. See now the dancers in the firelight, their costumes wild and beautiful, every element carrying meaning. Traditional Fijian meek performances feature elaborate costumes that transform the dancers into something more than human, something mythical and powerful. The men wear grass skirts called laikas, though not just any grass. Specific plants are used, dried, and prepared, creating skirts that rustle dramatically with every movement. Around their necks and heads, necklaces of shells, whale teeth, seeds, leaves. Their faces and bodies are painted, black soot, white clay, red ochre, in patterns that identify their village or family, that mark them as warriors or storytellers or mythical beings. They hold implements, clubs, spears, paddles, which they use in the dance, striking the ground, clashing together, extending the dancers' movements into the space around them. The women's costumes are equally elaborate. Colorful laikas that sway with their hip movements, tops made from tapa cloth or modern fabric, necklaces of flowers or shells, their hair adorned with flowers and leaves, their arms and ankles wrapped with decorative bands. The costumes aren't static museum pieces but living elements of the performance, chosen specifically for each meek, made new for each important performance. The preparation of costumes part of the ceremony of preparing to dance. When the dancers enter, their costumes announce them. These aren't everyday people anymore but embodiments of the stories they're about to tell, the ancestors they're channeling, the traditions they're preserving. The firelight flickers across their painted bodies, the shells rattle with their movements, the grass skirts rustle like wind through palms, and for the duration of the meek, the dancers and the audience exist together in mythical time, when the boundaries between past and present, between human and spirit, between everyday and sacred, all dissolve. Picture those dancers in the firelight, bodies moving with impossible energy, costumes alive with motion, faces transformed by paint and shadow and complete commitment to the story being told. The whole scene so vivid and primal you feel like you've traveled backward in time, witnessing something unchanged for centuries, something essential and true and completely alive. Let that image burn bright in your mind, then fade slowly like firelight dying. Bright, then dimmer, then embers, then darkness, then sleep. Bring your awareness now to the plant that creates connection, that builds community through shared ritual. The kava plant, Piper methysticum, doesn't grow wild but is carefully cultivated in Fijian gardens. Its large heart-shaped leaves distinctive, its roots the treasure. Kava grows slowly, taking 3 to 5 years before the roots are mature enough to harvest. The plant prefers shade, humidity, rich soil. It grows best under tree canopies, in the understory, not in full sun. Fijian farmers tend their kava gardens with care, knowing that these roots will be used for ceremonies, for welcoming guests, for evening gatherings, for maintaining social bonds. When harvest time comes, the plant is dug up carefully, the roots washed and prepared. The best roots are thick and fibrous, gnarled and substantial, aged enough to produce strong kava. These roots are a form of wealth, given as gifts, used in ceremonies, sold for cash. A farmer with a mature kava garden has security, has something valuable to offer. The cultivation of kava is itself a ritual, tied to traditions about when to plant, how to care for the plants, how to harvest respectfully. The plant that creates calm and connection requires patience to grow, requires years of care before it provides its gift, teaching in its growth cycle the same lesson it teaches when consumed. Good things come to those who wait. Peace cannot be rushed. Connection develops over time. Picture a kava garden. Shady, humid, the large leaves creating patterns of light and shadow, the plants growing slowly but steadily, their roots thickening underground where no one can see, patient accumulation of power and potency, years of growth leading to an evening of connection, time invested returning dividends in community and calm. Let that image of patient cultivation settle into your drowsy mind. The best things grow slowly, in shade, underground, invisibly, until the day comes to harvest them and share them, and then their value becomes clear, their years of patient growth justified in a single evening of connection and peace. Feel the difference now between two types of islands, two ways that land can rise from the sea. Fiji contains both high volcanic islands and low coral atolls, and they're completely different worlds. The volcanic islands, like Viti Levu, Vanua Levu, Taveuni, are dramatic, mountainous, born from fire when magma punched through the ocean floor, creating peaks that sometimes rise thousands of feet above the sea. These islands are young geologically, still showing their volcanic origins, their soil rich with volcanic minerals, their landscapes dominated by height, by dramatic topography, by rainforests and waterfalls and rivers cutting through valleys. Then there are the atolls, low-lying coral islands, barely rising above sea level, circular or crescent-shaped, surrounding lagoons, no higher than a few feet at their tallest points. Atolls form when volcanic islands slowly sink, the coral reef growing upward to keep pace, and eventually the original island sinks completely beneath the waves, leaving only the reef, now exposed at the surface, a ring of coral islands where a mountain once stood. Living on an atoll is completely different from living on a volcanic island. No fresh water except rain, no high ground to escape storms, vegetation limited to salt-tolerant plants, life defined by the ocean on all sides. Some of Fiji's outer islands are atolls, places like Rotuma to the far north, where life is simpler, more precarious, more intimately connected to the sea. The contrast between these island types, volcanic and coral, high and low, young and old, creates diversity in Fiji's landscapes, diversity in how people live. On a volcanic island, you can hide in the mountains, grow crops in the valleys, live without seeing the ocean. On an atoll, the ocean is inescapable, always visible, always present, sometimes threatening. Picture both. First, the volcanic island, green and mountainous, clouds catching on peaks, waterfalls tumbling, life abundant and varied. Then the atoll, flat and low, palm trees bent by constant wind, the lagoon on one side and the ocean on the other, the whole island barely existing, just a narrow strip of sand and coral between two bodies of water. Life minimal but persistent. Humans making a home on this sliver of land that seems too small, too vulnerable, yet has supported communities for generations. Let this contrast relax you. There are many ways to be an island, many ways to exist, and all of them work, all of them are home to someone. And finally, as you sink into the deepest relaxation, understand how daily life is lived in traditional Fijian villages, where community isn't an abstract concept but a living reality. Village life is communal in ways that modern individualistic societies have forgotten. Houses are close together, often facing a central green space where children play and meetings are held. Cooking often happens outdoors. Food is shared freely between households. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing because privacy as we understand it barely exists. Major work is done communally, building a house, preparing a lavo feast, harvesting crops, fishing, everyone helps, knowing they'll receive help in turn when they need it. Children are raised by the village, any adult empowered to discipline any child, all children welcome in any household. Elders are cared for by the extended family, no one sent away to live alone or in institutions. Decisions affecting the village are made collectively, after discussion where everyone can speak, guided by the chief but not dictated by him. This communal living creates a web of obligations and support so dense that no one can truly fail. If you're hungry, someone feeds you. If your house needs repair, people help. If you're sick, you're cared for. But it also means less personal freedom. You can't just do what you want without considering the community. Your choices affect others and others' choices affect you. Individualism is subordinated to collective good. For outsiders, especially from cultures that prize individual freedom above all, this can feel stifling. But for those raised in it, this communal life provides security, belonging, identity, connection. You're never alone, never without help, never disconnected from others. The web holds you, and in exchange for some freedom, you receive complete belonging. Picture a Fijian village at evening. Smoke rising from cooking fires, children playing together in the central space, adults sitting in groups outside their homes, conversation flowing between houses, someone playing a guitar, someone else beating a lolly drum, the sound of laughter, no one isolated, everyone visible and connected, the village functioning as a single organism, each person a cell in the body of the community, individual but inseparable from the whole. Let this image of complete connection, of absolute belonging, of being held in a web of care and obligation, let it be your final waking thought. You are not alone, have never been alone, are held by forces larger than yourself, supported by structures you didn't build, part of something that exists before you and will continue after you. Just a moment in an endless chain of moments, a breath in an endless cycle of breathing. And it's okay to let go because the web holds you, the community continues, the village sleeps but doesn't end, and you can rest knowing you're part of something eternal. The village is sleeping now. The fires are banking. The children are being called home. The day is ending. Let it end. Let yourself end this day. The village will wake tomorrow, and so will you, but not yet, not now. Now is for rest, for letting the web hold you, for trusting that you're safe in the collective embrace. Sleep now, village child. Sleep in the knowledge that you belong. Beulah. The day is complete. Rest is earned. Tomorrow waits. But tonight, you are held. You are home. You are safe. Sleep. Your consciousness is barely present now, a wisp of awareness floating in darkness. Your body has surrendered completely. Let these gentle truths about Fiji be the last things your mind touches before releasing into pure sleep. Picture yourself now in Fiji's capital, a city where the modern world and traditional Fiji coexist in fascinating harmony. Suva sits on the southeastern coast of Viti Levu, a proper city of over 90,000 people, far and away Fiji's largest urban center, the political and administrative heart of the nation. Unlike the resort towns and beach villages, Suva is a working city. Government buildings, embassies, businesses, the University of the South Pacific's main campus. The architecture is eclectic, colonial-era buildings with verandas and wooden shutters sitting beside modern concrete structures, Indian shops with brightly colored facades, Chinese restaurants, Methodist churches, Hindu temples, all mixed together. Suva is wetter than other parts of Fiji, sitting on the windward side of Viti Levu where the trade winds drop their moisture. It rains here often, sudden tropical downpours that send people scurrying under awnings, then clear just as quickly. The city has a wonderful botanical garden, a museum, a thriving market where you can buy everything from fresh fish to electronics, restaurants serving cuisine from a dozen cultures. But what makes Suva interesting is how it remains fundamentally Fijian despite being a city. People still greet each other with Beulah, still move at a relaxed pace, still make time for kava ceremonies in the evening, still prioritize relationships over schedules. The city pulses with energy, but not frenetic energy, not the anxious rush of most capitals. Even here, in the busiest place in Fiji, Fiji time prevails, and people remember that they're islanders first, city dwellers second. Picture Suva in the rain, the streets slick and shining, people walking unhurried despite the downpour, the smell of curry and ocean air mixing, colonial buildings with their shutters open, and somewhere a radio playing Fijian music. The city alive but not frantic, urban but not divorced from the island that holds it. Let this image of Fiji's capital relax you. Even in the city, even in the modern world, the island's peace persists, the essential character remains, and nothing moves so fast that you can't keep up just by walking, just by breathing, just by being present. Feel now the clay in your hands, cool and damp, responsive to pressure. Traditional Fijian pottery, making clay vessels by hand, is an ancient art practiced for thousands of years, and remarkably, it survived into the modern era in a few areas, particularly in villages on Viti Levu and Vachalil Island. Fijian pottery is distinctive, made without a potter's wheel, using the coil method where long ropes of clay are layered and then smoothed together. The potter shaping the vessel entirely by hand and eye, no two pieces exactly alike. The clay comes from riverbanks or coastal areas, carefully selected, prepared by removing stones and debris, mixed with temper, often sand, to prevent cracking during firing. The pots are formed slowly, patiently, coils added one at a time, the walls built up, the shape emerging from the potter's hands and vision. Once shaped, the pots are dried in the shade, never in direct sun, which would crack them. Then fired in an open fire, surrounded by burning coconut husks or wood, the flames turning the clay hard and waterproof. The resulting pottery is beautiful in its simplicity. Round-bottomed pots that nestle into sand, water jars with narrow necks, bowls with smooth curves, all in shades of red-brown to black depending on the clay and firing. These pots were essential for daily life, cooking, storing water, fermenting food, ceremonial use. With modern metal and plastic containers, pottery making declined, nearly died out, preserved now by a few masters teaching the old ways, by cultural centers keeping the knowledge alive, by tourists buying pots as artwork rather than cookware. But in its heyday, every village had potters, and the sound of a pot being smoothed, the potter's hands circling the clay, the rhythmic patting, was as common as the sound of the lolly drum. Picture a potter at work, sitting on the ground, legs extended, a half-formed pot in her lap, her hands moving with practiced certainty, adding coils, smoothing them, the clay responding to her touch, becoming vessel, becoming container, becoming art. Let that image of patient hand-building relax you. Creation happens slowly, without machines, without hurry, just hands and clay and knowledge, the simplest materials becoming useful beauty, one touch at a time, one smooth movement at a time, building upward from the base, layer by layer, like sleep building layer by layer as you sink deeper. Taste now the flavor of India transformed by the Pacific. When Indian laborists came to Fiji, they brought their cuisine with them, and over generations, it evolved, adapting to local ingredients, creating something unique. Fijian Indian food, different from the food of India but unmistakably descended from it. Roti, flatbread, is ubiquitous in Fiji, served at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, used to scoop curry, wrapped around fillings, eaten plain with butter. But Fijian roti is distinctive, often thicker and fluffier than Indian roti, sometimes made with cassava flour mixed with wheat, adapted to what's available. Curry in Fiji is its own thing too. Indo-Fijian curry tends to be less spicy than Indian curry, adapted to Fijian palates and Pacific ingredients. Coconut milk often replaces dairy, local fish and vegetables appear alongside traditional chickpeas and potatoes. The spice is slightly different because some had to be grown locally or substituted. Then there are hybrid dishes that exist nowhere else. Fish curry made with freshly caught mahi-mahi, cassava curry that uses the root vegetable Fijians have eaten for millennia, roti served with kokoda, curry and rice wrapped in taro leaves. Indo-Fijians also make sweets, jalebi, burfi, laddu, but again adapted, using local sugar, coconut, tropical fruits. The result is a cuisine that bridges two worlds, that's simultaneously Indian and Fijian, that belongs fully to both traditions and to neither. In Fijian cities and towns, you'll find Indo-Fijian restaurants and street vendors, the smell of curry and roti wafting through the air, and both indigenous Fijians and Indo-Fijians eating this food, claiming it as their own. Because it's Fiji's food now, born from migration and adaptation and the slow alchemy that happens when cultures truly mix. Picture a table with both curry and kokoda, roti and cassava, chai and fresh coconut water. The fusion complete, the boundaries dissolved, everything simply Fijian now, regardless of origin. Let these flavors blend in your imagination. Spicy and cooling, foreign and familiar, complex and comforting. Food that nourishes body and represents the beautiful complexity of a nation built from multiple peoples, multiple traditions, becoming one. Breathe in now the essence of prosperity, the smell that meant wealth for generations of Pacific Islanders. The coconut palm provides so much we've already mentioned it. But there's one product that deserves special attention: copra, dried coconut meat. For much of the 20th century, copra was the Pacific's main export, the crop that connected remote islands to the global economy. Making copra is labor-intensive. Fallen coconuts are collected, split with machetes, the white meat scooped out and spread on racks or mats to dry in the sun. The drying takes days, the meat shrinking and hardening, moisture evaporating, leaving oil-rich dried coconut that won't spoil. This dried copra is collected by traders, shipped to mills where the oil is extracted, then sent worldwide to become cooking oil, cosmetics, soap, industrial lubricants. At its peak, copra provided cash income for thousands of Fijian and Indo-Fijian families, a reliable crop that required little investment. The trees grew themselves, produced continuously, asked only for labor in return. But copra production has declined dramatically, global prices fell, synthetic oils replaced coconut oil in many uses, The labor is hard for returns that can't compete with tourism or other industries. Some families still produce copra, maintaining the tradition, but the copra boom is long past. The drying racks often empty now, the traders coming less frequently. What remains is the memory of when coconut was king, when those white half-shells drying in the sun meant money, meant connection to the wider world, meant that even the most remote island had something valuable to offer. Picture a copra drying shed. The sweet, slightly rancid smell of drying coconut meat, racks covered with white half-shells, flies buzzing, the sun beating down, an old man turning the copra to dry evenly. This work is done for 50 years, knowing his children probably won't continue it. The last generation of copra makers, preserving something that's fading but not yet gone. Let that image of honest labor, of crops that sustained families, of connection between remote islands and distant markets, let it sink into your drowsy consciousness. The world changes, industries rise and fall, but the palms still grow, still drop their nuts, still offer their gifts whether anyone makes copra or not, generous and patient and unconcerned with economics. Feel the wind now, building, the barometric pressure dropping, the air taking on a strange quality. Fiji sits in a region that experiences tropical cyclones, called hurricanes in the Atlantic, typhoons in Asia, and the cyclone season runs from November through April, coinciding with the wet season. These massive rotating storms form over warm ocean water, drawing energy from the heat, spinning up into systems hundreds of miles across, with winds sometimes exceeding 150 miles per hour. When a cyclone approaches Fiji, the nation prepares. Warnings broadcast on radio and TV, villages secure their homes, people stock water and food, evacuate low-lying areas. The strongest cyclones can be devastating. Cyclone Winston in 2016 was the strongest storm ever recorded in the southern hemisphere to make landfall, with winds over 180 miles per hour, and it tore through Fiji, causing immense damage, killing dozens, destroying entire villages, ripping up crops, shattering buildings. But cyclones are also part of life in the tropics, events that Fijians have endured for as long as people have lived here, building techniques and cultural knowledge developed over centuries to survive them. Traditional burrs, when properly built, can flex in the wind rather than breaking, their lightweight construction meaning less damage when they do fail. Communities rebuild together after storms, helping each other, sharing resources. And between cyclones, sometimes years pass without a major strike, the threat receding into background worry, life continuing normally. Climate change is making cyclones more intense though less frequent. The storms that do form more dangerous, the rain heavier, the storm surge higher, creating new challenges for low-lying islands. Picture a village preparing for a cyclone. Families boarding up windows, securing roofs, moving to evacuation centers, the wind beginning to rise, the sky darkening, everyone calm because they've done this before. They know what to do. They'll survive this together as they've survived storms before. The cyclone coming like a test that must be endured, not prevented, not defeated, just endured with patience and community. Let the image of that approaching storm settle into your mind, but then let it pass. Let the cyclone blow through and move on, leaving the island still there, damaged but standing, the people emerging to rebuild, the sun returning, life continuing because this too is part of island life. The storms that come and go while the islands remain. See now the colors bleeding from the coral, a tragedy unfolding in slow motion underwater. Fiji's reefs, like coral reefs worldwide, face the threat of coral bleaching caused by warming ocean temperatures. When water becomes too warm, coral polyps expel the symbiotic algae, zooxanthellae, that live in their tissues, that give them color and provide them with food through photosynthesis. Without these algae, the coral turns white, bleached, and if conditions don't improve quickly, the coral dies, the reef structure remaining but lifeless, no longer growing, no longer providing habitat. Fiji has experienced bleaching events, particularly during El Niño years when ocean temperatures spike. Those famous soft coral gardens turning pale, divers surfacing with reports of devastation. Some coral recovers if water temperatures drop quickly enough. The algae recolonizing, color returning, life continuing. But repeated bleaching weakens coral, makes it more vulnerable to disease, to storm damage, to other stresses. Scientists and conservationists in Fiji are working to understand and combat this threat, identifying coral species that are more heat-tolerant, establishing marine protected areas, working with communities to reduce other stresses on reefs like pollution and overfishing, even experimenting with coral restoration, growing coral in nurseries and transplanting it to damaged areas. The challenge is enormous. Ocean temperatures are controlled by global climate, not by local action. But Fijians know their reefs are essential, know that tourism depends on healthy coral, that fish depend on reef habitat, that shorelines depend on reefs for protection. The Great Sea Reef, the soft coral gardens, the lagoons full of life, all of it vulnerable, all of it precious, all of it worth fighting for. Picture a diver swimming over a bleached reef. The white skeletons of coral that should be purple, orange, pink, the silence where there should be the clicking and rustling of reef life, the sense of loss, but also the determination to protect what remains, to give the reef a chance to recover, to fight for these underwater gardens that make Fiji special. Let this sobering reality enter your consciousness for just a moment. Beauty is fragile, treasures can be lost, our actions matter. But then let it go, release the worry, trust that people are working, communities are acting, that coral has survived 5 mass extinctions and may yet survive this one. That hope is not foolish, that action matters, and that for tonight, the reef still stands, still lives, still grows, and that's enough. Let it be enough. Let go of what you cannot control. Rest in hope. Descend now into the lagoon where predators circle in water so clear you can see everything. Bika Lagoon, pronounced Benga, off the southern coast of Viti Levu, is world famous for one specific experience: shark diving. Multiple species of sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks, reef sharks, nurse sharks, sometimes even hammerheads, gather in this lagoon, attracted by the food offerings that dive operators use to bring them close. Divers kneel on the sandy bottom in a semicircle while dive masters feed the sharks, and the sharks come, not cautious or distant but close, curious, powerful, their movements graceful and precise, their presence overwhelming. Bull sharks are the stars, stocky, aggressive-looking, considered one of the more dangerous species. They come so close you could touch them, though you're warned not to. Their cold eyes regarding you with what appears to be intelligence, calculation, interest. The experience is heart-pounding. These are apex predators, fish perfectly adapted for hunting, and you're in their territory, watching them feed, their power impossible to ignore. But it's also transformative. You realize the sharks aren't interested in you, that attacks are accidents, misunderstandings, that these fish are simply doing what they've done for millions of years, and you're privileged to witness it. Bika shark diving is controversial. Some argue that feeding habituates sharks to humans, creates dangerous conditions, disrupts natural behavior. Others counter that it creates economic value for sharks alive rather than dead, that it teaches respect and wonder for these misunderstood predators, that the sharks come and go freely, that their behavior remains essentially wild. Picture yourself kneeling on that sandy bottom, water crystal clear, visibility perfect, and a 10-foot bull shark gliding past your head, its body thick with muscle. It's irritating to look at you. The moment suspended in time, your heart pounding, your mind absolutely present. No room for other thoughts, just this moment of pure, focused awareness. This encounter with something wild and powerful and completely indifferent to your human concerns. Let that image of absolute presence, of mind cleared by adrenaline and wonder, of being fully in the moment because anything else might be dangerous. Let it focus your wandering thoughts, gather them into a single point, and then release that point. Let it go, the shark swimming past, the moment passing, your heartbeat slowing, returning to calm, to peace, to the safety of your bed where no sharks swim, only the memory of them, fading now as sleep approaches. And finally, as consciousness barely flickers, understand how Fijians have always fished, the traditional methods that sustained communities for millennia. The ocean and lagoons weren't just resources but relationships, understood deeply, treated with respect. Traditional fishing used multiple techniques: spearfishing while free diving or at night with torches, hand lines cast from shore or canoe, nets woven from local fibers stretched across lagoon channels at high tide to trap fish as the water recedes, stone fish traps built in the shallows with walls of coral directing fish into enclosures where they'd be trapped by falling tide, fish drives where entire villages would wade through shallow water, making noise, herding fish toward waiting nets. The knowledge required was extensive: which fish appeared in which seasons, which phases of the moon brought certain species, where different fish preferred to feed, how tides and currents moved fish around the lagoons and reefs. This knowledge was oral, passed from expert to apprentice, stories and techniques and observations accumulated over generations. A science without laboratories but just as sophisticated. Crucially, traditional fishing was sustainable. Communities took what they needed, no more, understanding that depleting stocks meant hunger in the future, that the reef needed to be healthy to provide fish year after year. Chiefs could declare tabu, temporary fishing bans on certain areas, allowing stocks to recover, a traditional form of marine management that modern science now recognizes as effective. Today, many Fijians still fish traditionally, though increasingly supplemented by modern techniques, motorized boats, sonar, GPS, modern nets and lines. Some communities are reviving traditional marine management, establishing taboo areas, combining ancient wisdom with modern science to protect their reefs and lagoons. Picture a fisherman at dawn, standing in the shallows, spear in hand, absolutely still, watching the water, reading the ripples and shadows, seeing things you'd miss entirely, his knowledge written in his body, in his eyes, in his patience, waiting for the exact right moment, and then the strike, quick, precise, successful. The fish speared cleanly, and he wades toward shore. This fish, one of thousands, is caught this way. His skill earned through decades of practice, his knowledge inherited. From his father and grandfather, this simple act of catching a fish connected to an unbroken chain of fishermen stretching back to the Lapita people who first fished these waters 3,500 years ago. Let that image of patient knowledge, of skill perfected across generations, of working with nature rather than dominating it, let it be your final waking thought. Some knowledge can't be written in books, some skills live only in practice, and the best way to do something is often the oldest way, refined by time, proven by generations, simple and effective and sustainable, asking only patience and respect and willingness to learn. Sleep is like that too. Not something you achieve through effort, but something you allow through patience, through respect for your body's rhythms, through willingness to let go. The fisherman waits, utterly patient, for the fish to come. You wait, utterly patient, for sleep to come. And it comes. The fish arrives. Sleep arrives. Now. Right now. The spear strikes. Sleep takes you. The village sleeps. The lagoon rests. The reef breathes in darkness. And you are finally, completely, perfectly asleep. You are gone now, consciousness dissolved like salt in water. Your body exists only as weight against the mattress. These words float through the darkness where your mind once was, asking nothing, expecting nothing, simply drifting past like clouds. Picture now the most magnificent watercraft ever built by Polynesian hands. The Drua, pronounced Ndrewr, was Fiji's double-hulled sailing canoe, and it represents the pinnacle of Pacific maritime engineering. Unlike the smaller Kamikaze with its single hull and outrigger, the Drua had two hulls connected by a platform, creating a vessel of extraordinary stability and carrying capacity. The largest Drua were over 100 feet long, their twin hulls carved from massive trees, their platforms wide enough to carry 50 warriors plus supplies, their single massive sail, sometimes 1,000 square feet of woven pandanus matting, towering above the water like a wall catching wind. These were the warships and trading vessels of ancient Fiji, capable of sailing between islands, of carrying armies, of voyaging hundreds of miles across open ocean. Building a Drua was a massive undertaking, requiring months or years, involving entire communities, overseen by master builders whose knowledge was sacred. The launching of a new Drua was cause for great ceremony, offerings to the gods, feasting, speeches, the vessel carried to the water by scores of men, the whole village participating. In battle, Drua were terrifying. They could ram smaller vessels, carry enough warriors to overwhelm shore defenses, move fast enough to catch or escape most other craft. In trade, they connected the archipelago, carrying goods and news and people between islands. The age of the Drua faded with European contact. Metal ships proved superior for most purposes. The knowledge of building these massive canoes began to die out. But in recent decades, there has been revival. A few Drua have been built using traditional methods, sailed in ceremonial contexts, preserving the knowledge before it disappears entirely. Picture a Drua under full sail, the massive woven sail catching wind, the twin hulls cutting through swells, the platform crowded with people, the whole vessel moving with surprising speed and grace despite its size. A monument to human ingenuity, to the Pacific people's mastery of their ocean world, to the ambition and skill that allowed people without metal tools to build vessels that could challenge the ocean and win. Let that image of the Drua fill your fading consciousness. Massive, powerful, beautiful. A vessel carrying you not between islands but between waking and sleeping. Its sail full of dreams instead of wind. Its course set for the far shores of rest. Feel yourself now not in a boat but standing on the shore, reading the ocean like a book written in water. Traditional Fijian navigators possessed knowledge that seems almost supernatural. The ability to find distant islands across hundreds of miles of open water using no instruments, no charts, nothing but observation and memory and inherited wisdom. They read the waves, understanding that swells refract around islands, creating interference patterns detectable miles away, patterns that reveal an island's direction and distance to those trained to feel them. They read the stars, memorizing the rising and setting points of dozens of stars throughout the year, using them as compass points, knowing which star to follow toward which island at which time of year. They read clouds. Certain cloud formations gather over islands, even islands below the horizon, the land heating the air, causing updrafts, creating clouds that hover in place while clouds over open ocean flow past. They read birds, species that return to land each night, if seen in late afternoon, indicate land in the direction they're flying. Seabirds that range far from shore, their presence means nothing, but their absence might mean land is near. They read the watercolor, the floating debris, the temperature, building a complete picture of where they were and where they needed to go, all without writing anything down, all held in memory and passed through apprenticeship from master to student. Each voyage a test, each successful arrival a validation of the system. This knowledge is largely lost now. GPS made it obsolete, and few young people studied with the last masters. But efforts are underway to recover what can be recovered, to document the techniques, to train a new generation in the old ways, not because GPS might fail, but because this knowledge represents human achievement too valuable to lose. A science as sophisticated as any Western navigation, just expressed differently, held in bodies and minds rather than books and instruments. Picture a navigator standing at the bow of a drua, feeling the swell patterns through his feet, watching the stars, observing the clouds on the horizon, knowing with certainty that an island lies 3 days sailing to the northeast. His confidence based not on faith but on knowledge, on science, on techniques refined over 3 millennia of Pacific voyaging. Let that image of certainty based on observation and inherited wisdom comfort you. The universe can be read by those who learn its language. Patterns exist even in apparent chaos, and knowledge passed down through generations carries truth that doesn't require writing to be valid. You too are navigating now, using feelings and instincts rather than thought, finding your way to sleep not by trying but by reading the signals your body sends, by trusting inherited wisdom about rest, by following patterns older than consciousness. You know the way. Your body knows. Let it navigate. Let it find the shore. You're almost there. Taste now the starch that sustained Fiji through lean times, the root that grows where other crops fail. Cassava, called tapioca in Fijian, is not native to Fiji but was introduced centuries ago, probably from South America via the Philippines, and it has become absolutely essential to Fijian diet and agriculture. Cassava is remarkably resilient. It grows in poor soil, tolerates drought, survives neglect, produces edible roots year-round, can be harvested as needed rather than all at once. This resilience made cassava crucial during cyclones, wars, famines, times when other crops failed. Cassava kept growing, kept producing, kept people alive. The roots are starchy, bland, similar to potato but denser, requiring cooking to break down toxins present in raw cassava. They're boiled, baked, fried, mashed, made into flour for bread and cakes. Cassava leaves are also edible, cooked like spinach, providing greens when other vegetables are scarce. Every Fijian household with even a small plot of land grows cassava. It's insurance, backup, the reliable friend who's always there when needed. In traditional times, cassava was fermented in pits, preserved for months, creating a sour paste that could be eaten when fresh food was unavailable. Today, cassava appears at nearly every meal, boiled cassava alongside fish, cassava chips as a snack, cassava cake for dessert. The plant grows tall and bushy, its distinctive star-shaped leaves marking gardens throughout Fiji, its roots thickening underground, patient and reliable, waiting to be dug up whenever hunger calls. Picture a cassava garden. The tall plants waving in the breeze, roots growing invisibly below, no care required, no watering needed, just growth, steady and certain. This plant that asks almost nothing and gives abundance. This gift from another continent that became Fijian through necessity, through reliability, through generations of depending on it and finding it dependable. Let that image of quiet reliability relax you. Some things just work, some foundations are solid, some sources of nourishment never fail, and you can rest on them without worry, without checking, without anxiety, knowing they'll be there when needed, as constant as cassava roots thickening in the dark soil. Feel now the texture beneath your fingers, smooth and flexible. Woven with such skill it seems impossible it came from a plant. Voivoi, pronounced voivoi, is a pandana species that grows throughout Fiji. Its long, narrow leaves perfect for weaving. Unlike the broader pandanus leaves used elsewhere, voivoi produces fine, supple leaves that can be split into even thinner strips, allowing for incredibly detailed, intricate weaving. Traditional Fijian weavers create mats of such fineness they feel almost like fabric, baskets so tightly woven they hold water, hats that provide shade while allowing air to circulate. The preparation of voivoi is labor-intensive. Leaves are harvested at the right age, neither too young nor too old, then dried, sometimes smoked over fire to darken them or boiled in dyes to create colors. The dried leaves are split lengthwise, the central spine removed, creating strips that might be only a few millimeters wide. Then comes the weaving, fingers moving in patterns learned through years of practice, creating diagonal weaves, checkerboard patterns, intricate borders, each piece taking hours or days to complete. The finest voivoi mats were traditionally presentation items, given to chiefs, used in ceremonies, too valuable for everyday use. These mats could take months to complete. Their weave so tight that almost no light passed through. Their patterns so complex they told stories, identified regions, marked the weaver's mastery. Today, voivoi weaving continues, though many weavers are elderly women, their knowledge at risk of being lost as younger generations pursue other livelihoods. The mats and baskets are sold to tourists, used in traditional ceremonies, given as wedding gifts, still valued, still beautiful, still representing hundreds of hours of skilled labor compressed into something practical and artistic simultaneously. Picture an old woman weaving, her fingers moving automatically, muscle memory guiding them, her eyes perhaps not even watching as the pattern emerges, decades of practice allowing her to weave while conversing, while supervising grandchildren, the voivoi strips flowing through her hands like water, the basket or mat growing steadily, this meditation in motion, this prayer in pandanus, this preservation of knowledge through practice. Let the image of those weaving fingers hypnotize you, back and forth, over and under, the pattern building, the rhythm steady, fingers that know what to do without thinking, like breathing, like heartbeat, like the body's journey into sleep, patterns repeating, building something from nothing, order from chaos, rest from wakefulness, one strip at a time, one breath at a time, one heartbeat at a time, weaving, 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 until the work is done. The mat complete, the consciousness finally released. Witness now a ceremony of such importance it transforms lives, establishes authority, connects present to past. The installation of a new chief, the Turaga Ni Koro or paramount chief, is one of Fiji's most sacred ceremonies, a ritual preserved with minor variations for centuries, essential to maintaining the social structure that defines traditional Fijian life. When a chief dies or steps down, the succession follows strict rules based on lineage, determined by elders and advisors, sometimes undisputed, sometimes requiring negotiation and consensus. Once the successor is chosen, preparations begin for the installation ceremony. Months of planning, gathering resources, preparing food, inviting neighboring chiefs and villages, everything done according to ancient protocols. The ceremony itself is elaborate. Presentations of tabua establishing relationships and obligations, kava ceremonies binding participants, speeches recounting the lineage of chiefs back through generations, establishing the new chief's connection to ancestors, to the land, to the divine. The new chief receives symbols of authority, a whale tooth, a staff, specific clothing or ornaments, each item heavy with meaning and history. He sits in a particular place, receives obeisance from his people, accepts responsibilities along with honors. The ceremony is public, witnessed by the community, making the transition official in their eyes, in the eyes of other chiefs, in the eyes of the ancestors and gods who watch. After the installation, massive feasting, lavo pits full of food, days of celebration, traditional dances and songs, the whole community participating in welcoming their new leader. The new chief's first acts are carefully watched. He must show wisdom, generosity, respect for tradition, establishing himself as worthy of the position. Throughout his tenure, he'll be judged against these standards. His authority maintained through performance of the role, not just by right of birth. Picture that installation ceremony. The new chief sitting cross-legged on fine mats, surrounded by elders, the air thick with the solemnity of the moment, tabua being presented with formal speeches, kava being drunk with precise ritual, the weight of generations pressing down on this moment, history and future meeting in this man who becomes more than a man, who becomes a living link between past and present, who accepts the burden of leadership and the responsibility to his people, to his ancestors, to tradition itself. Let this image of sacred transition, of authority conferred through ritual, of the individual subsumed into a role larger than self, let it flow through your drowsy mind. Some transitions require ceremony, some changes must be witnessed, some moments are too important to pass unmarked, and in honoring them properly, we honor what came before and what will come after. We acknowledge that we're part of something larger, something that preceded us and will continue after us, and our moment in that continuity, however brief, matters. Swim now through crystal water and see an ancient creature approaching, wise and slow. The green sea turtle, called vonu in Fijian, is common in Fiji's waters. These gentle giants gliding through lagoons, grazing on sea grass, resting on the sandy bottom, surfacing to breathe with graceful, unhurried movements. Green sea turtles can grow to over 400 pounds, their shells 3 feet long or more, their age measured in decades. Some turtles swimming in Fijian waters today might be 50 or 60 years old, having survived predators, storms, nets, and hooks to reach maturity. They're called green turtles not because their shells are green, the shell is usually brown or olive, but because their fat is green, colored by their diet of seagrass and algae. Fijians have always had a complex relationship with sea turtles. Traditionally, turtle meat was highly prized, consumed only on special occasions, reserved for chiefs and important ceremonies. Hunting turtles required skill and knowledge, knowing where they fed, where they surfaced to breathe, how to approach without frightening them, how to catch them either by diving and grabbing or by spearing. But even as turtles were hunted, they were also revered. Certain turtles were considered sacred, avatars of gods or ancestors, protected and honored. Today, green sea turtles are protected by law in Fiji, though enforcement is difficult and traditional hunting still occurs in some areas for ceremonies. Conservation efforts focus on protecting nesting beaches, monitoring populations, reducing bycatch in fishing nets, educating communities about the turtle's endangered status. Swimming with wild sea turtles is a privilege offered by Fiji's clear waters. Snorkelers often encounter them grazing on reefs. The turtles tolerant of quiet humans, sometimes curious, their ancient eyes regarding you calmly, their movements graceful despite their size, their presence somehow wise, somehow peaceful, as if they carry the patience of their long lives in every slow flap of their flippers. Picture a green sea turtle gliding beneath you, its shell dappled with sunlight filtering through the water, its flippers beating in slow rhythm, its head turning slightly to look at you, that reptilian face somehow expressive, that gaze somehow knowing. This creature that has survived everything the ocean could throw at it for perhaps 50 years, still here, still swimming, still eating, still surfacing to breathe, embodying persistence, embodying patience, embodying the slow wisdom that comes from living long and surviving much. Let that image of the turtle fill your mind. Slow, patient, unhurried, moving through life at its own pace, not racing, not rushing, just existing, just continuing, just being, one flipper stroke at a time, one breath at a time, surviving through patience rather than speed, through steadiness rather than brilliance, teaching by example that slow and steady isn't just a fable but truth, that patience wins, that the turtle reaches the ocean, reaches the feeding grounds, reaches old age, not by hurrying but by never stopping, by continuing at its own pace, and you can do the same, can reach sleep not by rushing toward it but by moving steadily, slowly, patiently toward it, one breath at a time, like the turtle, like the ancient Vonu swimming through dreams toward the breathing surface of tomorrow. Expand your awareness now beyond Fiji to see its place in the wider Pacific family. Fiji is a founding member and current headquarters of the Pacific Islands Forum, the main political and economic organization bringing together Pacific Island nations. This organization includes not just Melanesian nations like Fiji but also Polynesian countries like Samoa and Tonga, Micronesian nations like Palau and Kiribati, plus Australia and New Zealand. The forum addresses issues affecting the Pacific: climate change and rising sea levels threatening to submerge low-lying islands, sustainable fishing and protecting exclusive economic zones, maintaining political stability and democracy, coordinating responses to natural disasters, presenting a unified voice in international negotiations where small island states might otherwise be ignored. Fiji has played a crucial leadership role in Pacific regional cooperation, hosting summits, providing disaster relief to neighboring nations, training regional peacekeeping forces, offering university education to students from across the Pacific at the University of the South Pacific. This regional identity, as Pacific Islanders, not just Fijians, creates solidarity, recognition that while each nation has unique culture and challenges, they share the ocean, share similar vulnerabilities, share a history of colonization and struggle for self-determination, share a future threatened by climate change and economic challenges too large for any single small nation to face alone. In international climate negotiations, Pacific nations stand together, their representatives speaking movingly about nations that might cease to exist if sea levels rise too much, about cultures facing extinction not through war or disease but through the simple physics of water covering land. Picture a meeting of the Pacific Islands Forum. Representatives from a dozen nations, some large like Australia, some tiny like Tuvalu, but all sitting at the same table, all with equal voice, discussing issues that affect them all, finding common ground, building consensus, presenting a united front to a world that often forgets the Pacific exists. These small nations standing together because together they're stronger, together they're heard, together they matter. Let this image of cooperation and solidarity settle into your mind. No one is truly alone. Problems shared are problems halved, and in standing together, the small become large, the weak become strong, the overlooked become impossible to ignore. And finally, as the last ember of consciousness fades to darkness, gather round the evening fire to hear the stories. Traditional storytelling, tuku-tuku, is how Fiji preserved its history, its values, its identity before writing arrived. Elders would tell stories to children and young adults, tales of gods and heroes, of ancestors and their deeds, of how the world came to be, of why things are the way they are. These stories taught lessons: courage, loyalty, respect for elders, consequences of breaking taboos. But they also entertained, combining moral instruction with humor and drama and mystery. The storyteller's art was highly valued. The best storytellers knew hundreds of stories, could adjust their telling to the audience, used voices and gestures to bring characters alive, created suspense and surprise, made the past vivid and present. Stories explained natural phenomena: why the reef is where it is, why certain fish appear at certain times, why the wind blows from particular directions. They preserved history: battles fought, migrations undertaken, chiefs who ruled and how they ruled. They maintained genealogies: who descended from whom, which families were related, which alliances were ancient and which recent. Without writing, these stories had to be memorized perfectly, passed intact through generations, the storyteller serving as library, historian, teacher, and entertainer simultaneously. With modern education and literacy, traditional storytelling has declined. Children watch TV, read books, access the internet, and the old stories are less frequently told, the knowledge at risk. But efforts to preserve them continue, recording elders telling stories, writing them down, teaching them in schools, performing them as theater, ensuring that the tuku-tuku don't disappear completely, that future generations can access this wisdom and entertainment and history, even if not learned the traditional way, sitting around a fire, listening to an elder whose memory contains the entire history of the people. Picture that scene. Darkness beyond the firelight, the elder's face illuminated by flames, children sitting transfixed, adults listening even though they've heard these stories before, the voice rising and falling, becoming different characters, the story unfolding, and for this time, for this telling, the past is present, the ancestors are here, the story is real, happening now in the imagination of every listener, connecting them to their history, to their identity, to the long chain of tellers and listeners stretching back to the beginning. Let this image be the last. You are a child again, sitting by the fire, listening to a story, and the story is making you sleepy, your eyelids heavy, the voice washing over you, the words becoming just sounds, the sounds becoming rhythm, the rhythm becoming silence, and you're lying down now, the fire warm, the voice distant, the story continuing but you're no longer following it, you're drifting away. The storyteller's voice fading as you sink into your own stories, your dreams, the fire just embers, the voice just memory, and sleep. Sleep is the story you're in now, the only story, the eternal story that everyone enters each night, and you're entering it now, have entered it, are in it, are it, story and sleep and silence, all one, all now, all rest. Mos. The story is ending. Sleep is beginning. Or perhaps sleep is the story. Either way, you're in it. You're gone. You're dreaming. Beulah. Mos. Good night. The fire is embers. The voice is silence. The child is sleeping. You are sleeping. There is no you anymore, only breath, only darkness, only the faintest awareness floating in an ocean of sleep. These last whispers drift past like wind through palm fronds, requiring nothing, expecting nothing, simply present like the air itself. Understand now something fundamental about Fiji's land, something that shapes everything about how the nation exists. Nearly 90% of Fiji's land is communally owned by indigenous Fijian clans and families through a system that predates European contact, and remarkably, this system survived colonization and continues today. Land isn't owned by individuals in the Western sense but belongs to the Matakali, the extended family or clan, and it cannot be sold, only leased. This communal ownership means that every indigenous Fijian belongs to a Matakali that holds ancestral land somewhere in the islands. Land that's theirs by birth, by blood, by unbroken connection stretching back through time. The land isn't property but relationship, not commodity but identity. You can't sell your identity, can't give away your connection to ancestors, so you can't sell the land. It doesn't belong to you. You belong to it. Non-indigenous Fijians and foreigners can lease land for specific periods, but they can never own it outright, and when leases expire, the land returns to the Matakali. This system has created challenges. Uncertainty over leases affects investment. Disagreements over who speaks for the Matakali can stall development. The inability to use land as collateral for loans restricts economic opportunities. But it has also preserved something precious. Indigenous Fijians can never be completely dispossessed, never entirely lose connection to their ancestral territories, never become landless in their own country. The system says that some things transcend economics, that connection to land is more important than wealth extracted from land, that future generations' inheritance matters more than present generations' profit. Picture a Matakali meeting under a banyan tree. Clan members gathered to discuss a lease proposal, everyone having their say. The decision made collectively because the land belongs to everyone, to the ancestors who cleared it and planted it, to the children not yet born who will inherit it, to the spirits who dwell there, to the whole interconnected web of relationship that makes the Matakali a Matakali. Let this image of collective ownership settle into your consciousness. You don't own things alone. You hold them in trust, for others, for the future, your grasp temporary, your responsibility eternal, and in releasing the illusion of individual ownership, you find connection, you find belonging, you find that you're never alone because you're part of something larger that holds you even as you hold it. Walk now across ancient sand dunes that dwarf you, that seem impossible to exist on a tropical island. The Sigatoka sand dunes, on the southern coast of Viti Levu, rise up to 200 feet high, massive formations of windblown sand stretching along the coast for 3 miles. These aren't beach dunes but proper desert-like formations, constantly reshaped by wind, their slopes steep and smooth, their colors ranging from white to gold to rust red depending on mineral content and time of day. The dunes are ancient. Some deposits are thousands of years old, and they've preserved layers of Fiji's human history within their sand. Archaeological excavations have uncovered pottery, tools, and human remains dating back nearly 3,000 years, some of the oldest evidence of human habitation in Fiji. The dunes served as burial sites for ancient Fijians, the sand preserving what soil would have destroyed, creating an archaeological treasure that's still being studied. Walking the dunes is surreal. You're on a tropical island surrounded by jungle and ocean, yet you're climbing desert-like formations where no plants grow on the steepest faces, where the sand is so fine it pours through your fingers like water, where the wind constantly rearranges the landscape, erasing your footprints within hours, drawing new patterns, creating ripples and ridges that seem to flow like frozen waves. From the top of the dunes, you can see ocean on one side, jungle on the other, and beneath your feet, buried in the sand, are the remains of people who lived here when the Lapita culture was young, when Fiji was newly settled, when every day was a day of discovery and survival. The dunes are now a national park, protected, but they're fragile. Erosion from storms, disturbance from visitors, vegetation changes, all threaten these formations and the archaeological riches they contain. Picture yourself climbing a dune, the sand sliding beneath your feet, making each step a struggle, the summit receding as you climb, but finally reaching the top, windswept and breathing hard, looking out at an impossible landscape, sand and sea and jungle all visible at once, and knowing that beneath you, in these ancient sands, your ancestors sleep, their stories buried but not lost, waiting in the patient sand for someone to uncover them, to tell them, to remember. Let the dunes teach their lesson. Everything is temporary. The wind rearranges all. What seems permanent is actually flowing, constantly reshaping, and yet beneath the changing surface, in the depths, things are preserved, protected by the very sand that seems so unstable, memory held in grains too small to see, history written in layers that only patience can read. Feel now the weight of wrongdoing lifted, the break in relationship healed. The Bulubilu ceremony is one of Fiji's most important social rituals, a formalized process of reconciliation and forgiveness that repairs broken relationships and restores social harmony. When serious offense occurs, insult to a chief, violence between families, betrayal of trust, anything that fractures the social fabric, the Bulubilu provides a path to healing. The offending party approaches village elders or a chief to request intercession. A tabua is presented, that sacred whale's tooth, along with a formal apology, an acknowledgement of wrong, a request for forgiveness. The presentation is done with great humility, the offender often sitting on the ground, head bowed, the tabua offered with both hands, words chosen carefully, the seriousness of the moment acknowledged by everyone present. The offended party can accept or reject the bulubilu. Forgiveness isn't automatic, isn't forced. But there's enormous social pressure to accept if the apology is genuine, if proper protocol is followed, because refusal to forgive when bulubilu is properly offered creates its own rupture in the community. If accepted, forgiveness is complete. The offense is considered erased, not to be mentioned again. The relationship restored as if the break never occurred. Often there's a feast afterward, the two parties eating together, the community witnessing and celebrating the reconciliation. The bulubilu prevents feuds from becoming permanent, keeps conflicts from escalating across generations, provides a structured way to admit wrong and seek forgiveness without losing all dignity. It says that relationships matter more than pride, that community peace is worth the humility of apologizing, that forgiveness is a duty when properly sought. Picture a bulubilu ceremony. The offender approaching with a tabua, sitting low, voice humble, the words of apology formal and rehearsed but sincere. The tabua presented and received, silence as the offended party considers, and then acceptance, hands grasping in reconciliation, the community exhaling relief, harmony restored, what was broken now whole. Let this image of formalized forgiveness, of conflict resolution through ritual, of pride subordinated to peace, let it wash through your drowsy mind. Wounds can be healed, breaks can be mended, wrong can be acknowledged and forgiven, and in doing so, the community becomes stronger, not weaker, because it has proven it can survive conflict, can process offense, can choose peace over perpetual grievance. Drift now southward from the main islands to a less visited paradise, wilder and more remote. Kadavu, pronounced Kandiachvu, is Fiji's fourth largest island, lying about 60 miles south of Viti Levu, mountainous and largely undeveloped. Its 10,000 inhabitants living in small villages connected by rough roads or no roads at all, some communities accessible only by boat. Kadavu is shaped like an elongated crescent, its coastline intricate with bays and peninsulas, its interior rugged and still largely covered in native forest. The island is famous among divers for one specific reason. The Great Astrolabe Reef, one of the largest barrier reefs in the world, encircles Kadavu's eastern side, a massive wall of coral stretching for over 60 miles, creating protected lagoons of extraordinary beauty and channels where strong currents bring nutrients that feed spectacular coral growth and attract large pelagic fish. The Astrolabe Reef is named for the French ship that nearly wrecked on it in 1827. Its captain, Dumont d'Urville, just managing to steer clear of the coral and continuing his voyage of exploration. The reef remains dangerous to navigation but paradise for divers. Pristine coral gardens, walls dropping into deep blue, passages where manta rays congregate, sites where sharks patrol. Kadavu itself remains quiet, traditional, less affected by tourism than other parts of Fiji, its villages maintaining customs and practices that have faded elsewhere. There's no airport with jet service, just a small airstrip for propeller planes. No large resorts, just a few small eco-lodges. No crowds of tourists, just the occasional diver or backpacker seeking somewhere off the beaten path. Life on Kadavu moves slowly, follows the old patterns, exists in rhythm with the ocean and the land, with time for fishing, for farming, for kava ceremonies that stretch through the night, for living as Fijians have lived for generations, unhurried by the modern world's demands. Picture Kadavu from above, a green crescent in blue water, the Astrolabe Reef a pale ring protecting it. Villages scattered along the coast, smoke rising from morning fires, boats pulled up on beaches, the whole island peaceful, remote, content in its isolation, happy to let the tourist hordes go elsewhere while it maintains its quiet life. Let this image of remoteness and contentment settle into your mind. Not all progress requires participation. Not all development is improvement, and there's profound value in places that remain as they've been, that resist change not from fear but from satisfaction, from understanding that what they have is already enough, that rushing toward the future means abandoning a present that already works, that suits them, that feels like home. Descend now into the earth, into passages and chambers where water has carved wonder from stone. Fiji has extensive limestone formations, and where limestone meets water, caves form, underground rivers, chambers hung with stalactites, pools of crystal-clear fresh water, passages that explorers are still discovering and mapping. The Naihihi Cave, also called the Cave of the Cannibal, near Sigatoka, is one of the most famous, a maze of chambers and passages where an entire village once lived, hiding from enemies, using the cave as fortress, emerging only to fish and farm, retreating underground when threatened. The cave is massive, its main chamber cathedral-like, smaller passages branching off, some leading to dead ends, others to additional chambers, some too narrow to pass, others opening into spaces large enough for houses. Stalactites hang from the ceiling, formations that took millennia to grow, drop by drop, calcium carbonate accumulating in impossible slow motion, creating stone icicles, stone curtains, stone organs that ring when tapped, the cave a museum of geology and history simultaneously. Other caves contain fresh water, underground rivers flowing through limestone, emerging as springs, the water cold and clear, drinkable without treatment, essential to communities that built near cave entrances to access this reliable water source. Some caves are sacred, associated with spirits or ancestors, entered only for ceremonies or by those with proper authority. Exploring caves in Fiji requires guides, local people who know the passages, who can navigate in darkness, who understand which chambers are safe and which dangerous, who know the stories associated with different formations and spaces. Picture yourself deep in Naihihi Cave, your guide's lantern creating dancing shadows on walls, the stone formations glowing amber in the light, the air cool and damp, the weight of the earth above you palpable, the silence complete except for the drip 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 of water continuing its billion-year project of reshaping stone. You're standing where people once cooked meals, where children played, where warriors hid from enemies, where history unfolded in darkness, and the cave remembers, holds these memories in stone, patient and eternal, asking only that you respect its mystery, its sacredness, its endurance. Let the cave embrace you in your mind, its darkness complete, its silence total, its stone walls protective, and understand that darkness isn't frightening when you're safe within it. That silence is peaceful when it's chosen, that the earth's embrace is the oldest embrace, the womb of all life, the place where rest is most complete, where you return when the day is done, when consciousness is done, sinking into darkness, into silence, into the stone arms of sleep. Turn your attention now to the basic social unit that organizes traditional Fijian life below the village level. The Tokatoka, pronounced Tonga, is the extended family unit, typically consisting of multiple generations and branches of a family living in close proximity, sharing resources, working together, making decisions collectively. The Tokatoka is led by its oldest male member, who serves as spokesman and coordinator, though decisions are generally made by consensus among adult members. Your Tokatoka is your identity. It determines where you belong, what land you have rights to, who you can marry. Marrying within your own Tokatoka is traditionally forbidden. Where you'll be buried, who will care for your children if something happens to you, who you'll care for when they grow old or face hardship. The Tokatoka isn't just family in the sense of people you happen to be related to. It's your fundamental social unit, your economic unit, your political unit, your identity. Several Tokatoka together form a Matakali, and several Matakali form a Yavusa, the larger clan, and these nested structures create a social organization where everyone has a place, everyone belongs, Everyone has obligations but also claims on others' help. The Toka shares labor, building houses, farming, fishing, the work divided among members according to ability and need. It shares resources. What one family has, all families in the Toka have access to. What one lacks, others provide. It shares responsibility, raising children, caring for elderly, dealing with crises. This system can seem restrictive to outsiders. You can't just make individual decisions without considering the Toka, can't accumulate wealth without sharing it, can't leave and cut ties without consequences. But it provides a level of security and support that individual nuclear families can never match. Picture a Toka compound, several houses clustered together, children moving freely between them, meals often shared, older members sitting together making decisions, younger members carrying out the work, everyone knowing their role, their obligations, their rights, the whole unit functioning as an organism, each member a cell contributing to the whole. Let this image of embedded belonging relax you. You are not meant to exist alone, are not designed for isolation, are part of systems larger than yourself, and in accepting this, in embracing your place in the web, you find the support that allows you to rest completely, to let go of the burden of complete self-reliance, to understand that others hold you even as you hold them, and together you are strong enough, protected enough, connected enough to truly rest. Feel now the touch of the healer, the application of knowledge passed down through generations. Traditional Fijian medicine, Dove Vatukani, uses plants that grow throughout the islands, knowledge of which plants cure which ailments preserved by specialists called Dornavakabalavu or traditional healers. These healers know that the bark of the noni tree treats infections, that the leaves of the lemongrass plant reduce fever, that certain seaweeds address digestive issues, that ginger root settles nausea, that the sap of specific trees heals wounds, that roots of particular ferns treat respiratory problems. The knowledge is specific, not just which plant but which part, prepared how, administered when, in what quantity, combined with what other plants to enhance or moderate effects. The healers also understand that illness isn't always physical, that spiritual imbalance, broken taboos, anger from ancestors can manifest as physical symptoms, requiring not just medicine but reconciliation, not just treatment but ceremony. A healer might prescribe an herbal tea but also recommend a bulubulu ceremony, might massage sore muscles with oil but also insist on kava with someone you've wronged, treating the person holistically, understanding that body and spirit and social relationships are all connected, that healing one without addressing others is incomplete. This traditional medicine is still practiced, especially in rural areas where modern medical facilities are distant or expensive, and increasingly there's recognition that traditional knowledge has value, that these plant medicines work, that combining traditional and modern medicine might be most effective. Some traditional healers are working with researchers to document their knowledge, identifying active compounds in traditional medicines, testing effectiveness, preserving knowledge that's at risk as older healers die and younger people pursue other paths. Picture a traditional healer's house. Bundles of dried leaves hanging from the rafters, bark strips soaking in bowls, roots drying on mats, the smell of herbs and earth, and the healer herself, an elderly woman whose grandmother taught her, who is teaching her granddaughter, the chain of knowledge being passed forward one generation at a time. The herbs the same ones used for centuries, the illnesses the same, the cures still working, proven through generations of practice. Let the image of that traditional healer and her remedies soothe you. Nature provides healing, knowledge is medicine, and plants growing wild in the forest have been waiting for millennia to offer their gifts to those who know how to ask, how to prepare, how to apply them with respect and gratitude. And finally, as the last light fades completely, meet one of Fiji's most spectacular creatures, found nowhere else on Earth. The Fijian crested iguana, Vokai in Fijian, is a large, brilliantly colored lizard endemic to Fiji's northwestern islands, a reptile so distinctively beautiful it seems designed by an artist given license to ignore reality's constraints. Adult males are stunning, bright emerald green with wide white or pale blue bands encircling their bodies, a crest of spines running down their back and onto their tail, their eyes golden orange, their skin almost glowing in sunlight, the colors so vivid they seem artificial. Females and juveniles are duller green without the white bands, but still beautiful, still unmistakably the same species. These iguanas live in dry forest areas, eating leaves, flowers, and fruit, basking in trees, surprisingly arboreal for such large lizards. They're shy, avoiding humans when possible, spending much of their time motionless, relying on camouflage despite their bright colors. In the dappled light of forest canopy, those white bands break up their outline, making them hard to see. The Fijian crested iguana was scientifically described only in 1979, when a park ranger on Yaduataba Island discovered one. Since then, they've been found on a handful of islands, but their total population is small, perhaps a few thousand individuals, making them critically endangered. Threats include habitat loss, predators like feral cats and mongooses, and the isolation of populations on different islands preventing genetic exchange. Conservation efforts focus on protecting their habitat, creating predator-free islands where populations can recover, and captive breeding programs. In Fijian culture, iguanas appear in some traditional stories, though less prominently than marine creatures, and there's pride now in having such a spectacular endemic species, a creature that exists nowhere else, that can't survive anywhere else, that's purely and completely Fijian. Picture a male crested iguana motionless on a branch, his emerald green skin brilliant in a shaft of sunlight, his crest raised slightly, his golden eyes watching you, utterly still, utterly calm, conserving energy, existing in that reptilian state that seems halfway between alive and stone. And then suddenly he moves, quick as thought, to snatch a flower, consuming it in a few bites, then returning to immobility, teaching the lesson that stillness is not absence but presence, that the most energy-efficient way to exist is to be still unless movement is necessary, that action should be purposeful and brief, that the rest between actions is where life actually happens. Let the crested iguana be your final teacher tonight. Be still, be green as dreams, be patient as evolution, be bright in your uniqueness, be content on your small island of consciousness, and when you must move, move with purpose and then return to stillness, return to rest, return to the branch where you belong, the territory you hold, the small perfect space that's yours, and be still there, utterly still, conserving everything, needing nothing, just existing, just breathing, just being, until even being becomes too much effort and you slip from stillness into sleep, from presence into absence, from iguana consciousness into no consciousness at all, just the body remaining, just the breathing continuing, just sleep, deep and green and still as stone, as ancient as the islands, as patient as evolution, as complete as the darkness between stars. There is nothing left of waking now, only the faint echo of words arriving from somewhere far away. Your body breathes itself. Your heart beats without permission. These final truths about Fiji require nothing from you, not even listening, just drifting past like clouds across a sleeping mind. Imagine now water so pure it fell as rain centuries ago, filtered through volcanic rock for hundreds of years, emerging perfect and untouched. Deep beneath Fiji's surface, in an underground aquifer isolated from the modern world by layers of impermeable volcanic rock, lies some of the purest water on Earth. This is artesian water, water under natural pressure, trapped in porous rock, filtered through hundreds of feet of volcanic geology, emerging clean and mineral-rich when wells are drilled to reach it. In 1996, A Canadian businessman tasted this water and recognized something special. He established Fiji Water, drilling wells in the Yakara Valley on Viti Levu, bottling the artesian water in distinctive square bottles, marketing it as water untouched by man from until it reaches your lips. The company grew into one of Fiji's largest exports and employers, shipping millions of bottles worldwide, making Fiji Water a luxury brand recognized globally, somewhat ironically turning the name of an entire nation into shorthand for bottled water. The company has created economic benefits, jobs, taxes, infrastructure, but also controversy. Questions about water rights, about exporting a resource while some Fijians lack clean drinking water, about the environmental cost of shipping water in plastic bottles across the Pacific, about foreign companies profiting from Fijian resources. The aquifer remains, patient and deep, filtered through volcanic rock for longer than humans have been in Fiji. Water that fell as rain perhaps 500 years ago, before European contact, before even some of the traditions we've discussed were established. Ancient water waiting in darkness, now pumped and bottled and sent around the world. Picture that water, deep underground, motionless in the porous rock, absolutely pure, protected by geology from any contamination, waiting, just waiting, for hundreds of years, patience measured in centuries, purity maintained by stone and depth and time. Let that image of pure water in darkness settle into your consciousness. Some things are preserved by being buried, by being deep, by being isolated, and what emerges after time is more pure than what enters, filtered by passage through layers, improved by patience, perfected by time and darkness and slow seepage through stone. Hold now in your mind's eye an object of terrifying beauty, a weapon that's also art. The traditional Fijian war club, the I-war or totokia, is a heavy hardwood club, sometimes 4 feet long, carved from a single piece of extremely dense wood. Its head shaped like a pineapple or studded with knobs. Its surface often decorated with intricate geometric patterns or inlaid with whale ivory. These clubs were formidable weapons. The dense wood concentrated enormous force in the heavy head, and in the hands of a trained warrior, they could kill with a single blow, could crack skulls, shatter bones, overwhelm defenses. But they were also objects of beauty and status. The finest clubs were masterpieces of carving, their surfaces covered in traditional patterns, their balance perfect. They were selected for strength and beauty, polished to a lustrous sheen. A warrior's club was extension of himself, cared for and named, sometimes believed to contain mana, spiritual power accumulated through battle and ceremony. The clubs appear in traditional dances even today, wielded by male dancers performing war meek. The movements choreographed but based on actual combat techniques, strikes, blocks, parries, the dancer preservation of fighting methods, a way to keep warrior skills alive even in peace. Museums worldwide treasure Fijian war clubs, recognizing them as among the finest examples of Pacific art, functional objects elevated to aesthetic mastery. Some families still possess ancestral clubs, passed down through generations, no longer used but displayed with pride, honored as connection to warrior ancestors, to a time when Fiji's clans fought each other, when skill with the club meant survival, when every man was potentially a warrior. Picture a totokia, the dark wood so dense it barely floats, the surface carved with patterns that seem to flow, the weight balanced perfectly, the history it carries invisible but palpable. How many hands have held this handle? How many battles has it seen? How many lives has it taken? How many dances has it performed in? The club is silent, revealing nothing, just existing as it has existed for perhaps 200 years, were transformed by human hands into weapon, into art, into history, into reminder that beauty and danger can exist in the same object, that humans create tools for violence but cannot help making them beautiful, that even our weapons receive our aesthetic attention, our need to make things not just functional but meaningful, not just useful but worthy of being passed to our children. Let the image of the war club fade now, the weapon return to the display case, to the museum, to history, its fighting days long past, its purpose now to remind rather than threaten, to represent rather than destroy, its weight symbolic now rather than literal, though no less heavy for being symbolic. Watch now as the women dance, fans in their hands moving in perfect synchronization. The Mikwesi, the fan dance, is one of Fiji's most graceful traditional performances, performed exclusively by women, their movements flowing and elegant, their fans creating patterns in the air like birds' wings, like waves, like leaves in wind. The fans are made from pandanus or other woven materials, sometimes decorated with feathers, shells, or bright cloth. The dancers sit or stand in rows, moving together, their fans opening and closing, rising and falling, sweeping and turning, all in perfect unison, the precision mesmerizing. The Mikwesi tells stories of love, of daily life, of birds and flowers and nature. The fans becoming part of the storytelling, representing wings, wind, rain, whatever the dance requires. The movements are subtle rather than dramatic, hands and arms and torso moving gracefully while legs remain relatively still. The emphasis on fluid motion, on harmony between dancers, on creating beauty through coordination and precision. Young girls learn the Mikwesi from older women, practicing for hours to achieve the synchronization required, learning not just the movements but the discipline, the cooperation, the subordination of individual performance to group unity. A solo dancer can be beautiful, but a Mikwesi requires many dancers moving as one, and the beauty comes from their unity, from the impossible precision of fans moving together, of bodies swaying together, of the group becoming, for the duration of the dance, a single organism with many arms, many fans, many faces, but one intention, one expression, one story being told in unison. Picture 20 women performing Mikwesi, their fans bright red, their movements synchronized so perfectly they seem one person reflected in mirrors. The fans moving in waves across the line of dancers, opening like flowers blooming in sequence, closing like petals at sunset, the grace of it, the precision of it, the way it demonstrates that perfect coordination requires trust, practice, willingness to subjugate individual expression to collective beauty. Let this image of synchronized movement, of individual dancers becoming one through cooperation, let it hypnotize you. The fans opening, closing, sweeping, turning, all together, all as one. Your thoughts like those fans, multiple but moving together, and now slowing, now closing, now folding up, now still, all movement ceasing, all fans closed, all dancers motionless, the performance ending in stillness, in silence, in completion. Feel now a different kind of pride, a contribution Fiji makes to world peace far from its own shores. Despite being a small nation of fewer than 1 million people, Fiji has been a major contributor to United Nations peacekeeping missions for decades, sending soldiers to conflicts around the world, maintaining peace in places torn by war, protecting civilians in dangerous situations. Fijian peacekeepers have served in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, South Sudan, Egypt, across Africa and the Middle East, earning respect for their professionalism, their calm demeanor, their ability to diffuse tense situations through patience and humanity rather than force. The reputation of Fijian peacekeepers is such that their presence is specifically requested for difficult missions. Their skills in community engagement, in cross-cultural communication, in maintaining peace without escalating to violence, recognized as among the finest in UN peacekeeping forces. For Fiji, peacekeeping provides several benefits. It gives employment and experience to Fijian soldiers. It generates foreign currency that helps the economy. It raises Fiji's profile internationally. it allows this small island nation to contribute meaningfully to global stability. But more than economics or politics, there's genuine pride in peacekeeping. Fijians see it as honorable work, as using strength to protect rather than destroy, as representing their nation with dignity on the world stage, as exporting not just soldiers but Fijian values. Respect, community, the belief that conflicts can be resolved peacefully if all parties approach with good faith. Fijian soldiers returning from peacekeeping often speak of the importance of the work, of protecting civilians caught in conflicts not of their making, of preventing violence through presence and professionalism, of coming from peaceful Fiji to places torn by war and trying to bring some of that peace with them. Picture Fijian peacekeepers, their blue helmets and UN insignia marking them as neutral parties, standing between factions, their weapons visible but not threatening, their presence alone often enough to prevent violence, their training in Fijian methods of conflict resolution, their cultural value of respect and dialogue, their personal investment in peace because they come from a place where peace is normal, is valued, is the way life should be. Let this image of peaceful warriors comfort you. Strength can be used to protect. Power can be used to prevent violence rather than inflict it. And coming from a culture that values harmony gives perspective that allows seeing alternatives to conflict, seeing ways through impasse, understanding that almost all parties to conflict want peace but need help finding the path to it. Taste now the flavors of celebration, the feast that marks important occasions and welcomes honored guests. The Majitai, pronounced Marenget, is the traditional Fijian feast, and it's not just a meal but a carefully orchestrated presentation of hospitality, respect, and abundance. When a Majitai is prepared, it's an undertaking involving the whole village. Men dig the lavo pit and gather firewood. Women prepare vegetables and sides. Young people collect leaves for wrapping, everyone contributing. The feast includes fish, often several varieties, from lagoon and reef and deep ocean. Whole fish cooked in the lavo, their flesh steaming and flavorful. There's pork or chicken, root vegetables, taro, cassava, yams, sweet potato, breadfruit, palusami, taro leaves cooked in coconut cream, a delicacy, coconut in various forms, tropical fruits for dessert. Everything is arranged on a mat or long table. The presentation important, the variety demonstrating the community's wealth and generosity. Before eating, there are formal speeches, the hosts welcoming the guests, explaining the food, honoring the occasion. The guests thanking the hosts, praising the preparation, acknowledging the honor. Then everyone eats, usually with hands, sitting on the floor, the food shared communally, no hierarchy in serving, everyone eats together, takes what they want. The abundance ensuring that no one goes hungry, that seconds and thirds are not just acceptable but expected. The Majitai can last for hours, eating and talking and laughing, stories being told, kava being prepared and drunk, the social bonds being strengthened through shared food and time, the feast serving its deeper purpose of creating and maintaining community. After a Majitai, guests traditionally take food home with them. Plates wrapped in leaves, enough for family members who couldn't attend, the hospitality extending beyond the feast itself. Picture a Majitai spread on mats under a tree. Whole roasted fish, their skin crispy, pork falling off the bone, cassava and taro steaming, palusami in neat parcels, fruit piled in abundance, and around it, people sitting, eating, talking, children darting in to grab food and dart away, elders being served by younger people, everyone relaxed and satisfied. The feast a success not because of the food itself, but because of what the food represents. Effort, generosity, respect, community, the willingness to give the best. You have to honor your guests, to mark important occasions, to demonstrate that some things, hospitality, relationship, celebration, matter more than economy, than thrift, than practical considerations. Let the imagined taste of Majitai food fill your senses. Rich, smoky, satisfying, nourishing not just body but soul. Each bite a reminder that you're valued, welcomed, honored, that your presence at the feast is itself a gift, that in eating, you're participating in something sacred and social and profoundly human. Listen now to the rustle of thousands of leathery wings, a seasonal event that marks the rhythm of the year. Twice each year, in May, June, and November, December, Fiji's fruit bat populations undertake mysterious movements, large colonies dispersing or relocating, flying bats visible in huge numbers during daylight hours, unusual for these typically nocturnal creatures. Scientists aren't entirely certain what drives these seasonal movements, possibly following flowering and fruiting patterns, possibly related to reproduction, possibly temperature or weather-related, but the result is spectacular. The sky at times filled with bats, their numbers so large they create rivers of wings across the sky, their collective squeaking audible from the ground, entire trees suddenly hosting thousands where none were the day before. These movements are crucial to Fiji's forest ecosystems. As the bats follow fruit and flower resources across the islands, they pollinate trees, feeding on nectar, their faces getting dusted with pollen, carrying it to the next tree, and they disperse seeds, eating fruit and flying miles before defecating the seeds, spreading forest trees far beyond where they'd spread through gravity alone. Many of Fiji's native trees depend partially or entirely on bats for pollination and seed dispersal. Without the bats, these trees would decline, the forest composition would change, the ecosystem would be impaired. The seasonal movements ensure that bats visit all areas of forest throughout the year, that no tree population is isolated, that genetic diversity is maintained, that the forest remains healthy. Hunting pressure and habitat loss have reduced bat populations in recent decades, raising concerns about forest health, leading to some protections, education about the bat's ecological importance, efforts to preserve roosting sites. Picture a May evening, the sun setting, and suddenly the sky fills with bats, not dozens but thousands, their silhouettes countless against the orange sky, the sound of their wings and voices creating a cacophony, the spectacle continuing for minutes, wave after wave of bats flying with purpose towards some destination only they know, following ancient patterns, responding to signals the forest sends. Participants in an ecological ballet choreographed over millions of years, each bat an individual but the flock a single organism, flowing, moving, essential to the forest below, to the trees that depend on them, to the ecosystem that cannot function properly without these flying pollinators, these seed dispersers, these gardeners of the forest who plant without knowing, who tend without intending, who maintain the forest simply by being bats, by eating, by flying, by existing. Let the image of that bat migration soothe you. You too are part of patterns larger than yourself, part of movements you don't fully understand, participant in cycles that don't require your comprehension to function. Just your presence, just your continuation, just your being here, being alive, being part of it all. Journey now far to Fiji's north, to an island so unique it's almost not Fiji at all. Rotuma lies about 300 miles north of the main archipelago, a small volcanic island of only about 2,000 inhabitants, speaking a language, Rotuman, that's related to Fijian but different enough to be largely unintelligible to Fijian speakers, maintaining customs and traditions distinct from mainstream Fijian culture, their identity Rotuman first, Fijian second. Rotuma is administratively part of Fiji. It has representatives in Fiji's government. Its people are Fijian citizens. But geographically and culturally, it's an outlier, a unique place that joined Fiji almost by accident of colonial administration rather than through ancient cultural connection. The island is beautiful, lush, green, surrounded by clear lagoon, its interior crossed by a ridge of volcanic peaks, its coastline dotted with white sand beaches. Life on Rotuma is quiet, traditional, isolated. Shipping is irregular, flights rare. The outside world distant both literally and figuratively. Rotumans maintain their language fiercely, teaching it to children even as English and Fijian also are learned, preserving their distinct identity against the homogenizing pressures of being part of a larger nation. They have their own traditional dances, their own food preferences, their own social structures, similar to Fijian practices but distinct in details that matter to those who know both cultures. Many Rotumans live in Fiji proper now, in Suva and other urban centers, economic migrants seeking opportunities not available on their small isolated island, but they maintain Rotuman identity, meet in Rotuman associations, speak Rotuman among themselves, travel back to Rotuma for important ceremonies. The island represents something important about Fiji, that the nation encompasses diversity, that being Fijian doesn't mean being one thing, that there's room within this small island nation for different cultures, different languages, different ways of being, all coexisting under the Fijian flag. Picture Rotuma, a green island alone in blue ocean, no other land visible in any direction, the isolation complete, the identity preserved because of that isolation, people speaking a language fewer than 10,000 people understand, maintaining traditions that exist nowhere else, being Rotuman in a world that barely knows Rotuma exists, proud of that uniqueness, protective of that distinction, unwilling to dissolve into Fijianness even while being Fijian, holding both identities simultaneously. Particular and general, Rotuman and Fijian, small and part of something larger, alone but connected. Let this image of distinct identity within larger identity settle into your drowsy mind. You too are multiple things, contain multitudes, can be yourself while being part of groups, can maintain uniqueness while belonging. The two aren't contradictory, aren't in conflict, are simply the reality of being human, being specific and general simultaneously, being individual and social, being uniquely you while being part of family, community, nation, humanity, the universe, all circles containing you. Each one important, none negating the others. And finally, as the last whisper of consciousness fades into nothing, understand how ancient Fijians predicted weather, how they read the sky and sea and land to know what was coming. Traditional weather knowledge was essential survival skill, knowing when storms approached, when seas would be calm enough for voyaging, when rain would come for planting, when winds would shift direction. Fijians read clouds. Certain formations meant rain within hours, others meant storms approaching from distant areas, the height and color and movement of clouds all containing information to trained eyes. They read the ocean. Swell patterns changing meant weather systems moving. Sea color shifting indicated temperature or current changes. The behavior of waves on the reef predicted tide and wind changes. They read birds. Seabirds flying inland meant storms at sea approaching. Shorebirds behaving unusually meant atmospheric pressure changing. The calls and flights of birds predicted weather shifts hours in advance. They read stars. Certain stars visible or invisible at certain times indicated seasonal weather patterns. The clarity of stars predicted next day's weather. Star twinkling patterns meant atmospheric conditions that correlated with coming weather. They read their own bodies. Joints aching meant pressure dropping. Skin feeling particular ways meant humidity changing. Physical sensations became weather instruments for those trained to interpret them. They read plants. Leaves folding meant rain approaching. Flowers opening or closing predicted daily weather. Trees' behavior forecast seasonal changes. All this knowledge was accumulated over generations, patterns observed and remembered and passed forward, creating a science of weather prediction without instruments, relying entirely on observation and memory, surprisingly accurate for those who mastered it. This traditional knowledge is mostly lost now. Modern forecasts and satellite imagery made it obsolete. and few young people learned from the last elders who remembered. Picture an old Fijian fisherman deciding whether to go out. He looks at the sky, reads the clouds, watches birds flying past, feels the wind on his skin, observes the color of distant water, and decides, not today, a storm is coming, though the sky is mostly clear, though modern forecasts said nothing about storms. And the next day, the storm arrives, just as he knew it would, because the clouds told him, the birds told him, his joints told him, his lifelong observation of patterns told him, the knowledge passed from his grandfather told him, and he was right, as he usually is, his hit rate better than the weather service because he knows his specific location, his exact waters, his particular winds, and he reads them daily, reads them the way you read a book, finding meaning in arrangements of clouds. Like you find meaning in arrangements of letters. Let that fisherman's knowledge comfort you. The universe speaks to those who learn its language. Patterns are everywhere for those who observe. Prediction is possible through patience and attention and memory. And you too can read the signs your body gives you. The signals that say sleep is approaching, that consciousness is fading, that rest is imminent. Your eyelids heavy, your breathing slow, your thoughts disconnected, your body temperature dropping slightly. All the signs are there, all the patterns present, and you, trained through a lifetime of sleeping, through thousands of nights of practice, you read these signs accurately. You know what they mean. You know what's coming. Sleep, approaching like a storm but gentle, inevitable, already here, already taking you. The forecast was accurate, the prediction correct. The signs were clear all along, and now the storm arrives, soft and dark and complete, and you're inside it, surrounded by it, dissolving into it. The storm that's sleep, the weather system that's rest, the atmospheric condition called unconsciousness settling over you like clouds, like darkness, like the complete absence of light and thought and everything except the body breathing, the heart beating. The storm passing through you and leaving you transformed, left in the calm at the storm's center. The eye where nothing moves, nothing changes, nothing is except darkness and silence and peace. There is no awareness left, only the automatic rhythm of breathing, the unconscious pulse of blood. These last truths float through the void like seeds on wind, asking nothing, needing nothing, simply drifting through the darkness that was once a mind. Feel the current now, gentle but persistent, the longest waterway in all of Fiji carrying you downstream. The Sigatoka River flows for nearly 90 miles through the heart of Viti Levu, beginning in the island's mountainous interior and winding through valleys and gorges before emptying into the sea on the southern coast. This is Fiji's longest river, and along its path lies some of the most fertile land in the nation. The river valley supporting villages and farms for millennia, the annual floods depositing rich sediment that renews the soil, making the Sigatoka Valley Fiji's breadbasket. The river is more than geography. It's highway and food source, recreation and spiritual presence. In the old days, and still occasionally today, villagers used the river for transport, floating downstream on bilibili, simple rafts made from bamboo poles lashed together, steered with long poles, the bamboo's natural buoyancy making the rafts float high and light. These bilibili rafts carried people and goods, connected upstream villages to coastal communities, provided cheap transport that anyone could build from materials growing along the riverbank. Floating on a bilibili is unlike any other watercraft experience. The raft sits right at the water's surface, water occasionally washing over the bamboo, the ride bumpy in rapids, peaceful in slow sections, the whole journey feeling precarious and entirely safe simultaneously. The river shows different faces along its length, tumbling rapids in the upper reaches, flowing clear and fast, quieter pools in the middle sections, deep enough for swimming, slow and wide near the coast, the water brown with sediment, mangroves lining the banks. Villages along the Sigatoka have lived in relationship with the river for centuries. Fishing it, bathing in it, using it for transport, occasionally fearing it when floods come, always respecting it as the source of the valley's prosperity. Picture a bilibili raft floating down the Sigatoka on a quiet afternoon. Bamboo poles creaking, water gurgling between them, the current doing all the work, forests passing by on either bank, birds calling from the trees, the raft moving at exactly the speed of the water, hurrying nowhere, arriving eventually, the journey itself the destination. Let that image of gentle downstream drift become your experience. You're on the river now, being carried, the current making all decisions, your job only to stay on the raft, to float, to let the water determine speed and direction, to trust that downstream leads somewhere, that arrival is inevitable, that the river has carried millions before you and knows the way, that you're safe in its current, held by its flow, moving toward the sea, toward rest, toward dissolution in vastness, the river, carrying you there without effort, without thought, just steady downstream drift toward the ocean of sleep. Travel now back through time to Fiji's first capital, a town frozen in history, preserved like an insect in amber. Levuka, on the small island of Ovalau off Viti Levu's east coast, was Fiji's colonial capital from 1874 to 1882. The bustling center of European power, a frontier town of traders and sailors and adventurers, its main street lined with hotels and shops and trading posts, its harbor filled with ships from around the Pacific and beyond. But in 1882, the capital moved to Suva on Viti Levu, and Levuka, too small, too isolated, too difficult to expand, was left behind. The businesses gradually declined, the population dwindled, the town that had been Fiji's center became a backwater, bypassed by progress, forgotten by history. But this abandonment preserved it. Because Levuka didn't grow, it didn't tear down its old buildings to make room for new ones. Because it remained small, it kept its 19th century character. Today, Levuka is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the best preserved example of a late colonial Pacific port town. Its wooden buildings with their verandas and shutters still lining Beach Street, its churches and meeting halls still standing, its layout unchanged from 150 years ago. Walking through Levuka is walking through time. The buildings are still used, still occupied, but they're the same buildings, the same streets, the town a living museum where people go about daily business in structures their great-great-grandparents knew. Levuka represents a specific moment in Pacific history. The intersection of indigenous and colonial, the establishment of European power, the transformation of Fiji from independent kingdom to British colony, all frozen in architecture and town planning. It's also remarkably beautiful. The small island setting, the mountains rising behind the town, the harbor protected and serene, the pace of life slow, the sense of history palpable. Few tourists visit. Levuka is out of the way, requires a ferry or small plane to reach, offers limited accommodation. So it remains quiet, authentic, a place where history isn't performed for visitors but simply exists as part of daily life. Picture Levuka's main street at sunset. The old wooden buildings casting long shadows, an elderly Indo-Fijian shopkeeper closing up for the day, children playing in the street where trading ships' captains once walked, the church bell ringing as it has rung for 140 years, the town holding its history not as burden but as identity, not as museum piece but as home. Let this image of preserved history comfort you. The past doesn't have to be lost. Some things remain. Some moments are captured and held, and in places like Levuka, you can touch what was, can see what your ancestors saw, can walk streets unchanged by time, and understand that not everything is swept away, that preservation is possible, that memory can be maintained in wood and stone and town layout, and that history lives not just in books but in places, in buildings, in towns that refuse to. change, that remained themselves despite the world transforming around them. Nothing remains but the body breathing itself. These final truths are whispers in a void, the last stars fading before dawn that will not come for hours, the gentlest possible closing of a journey that ends where all journeys end. In rest, in peace, in the absolute stillness of complete surrender. Look now at the symbol that represents this nation, the design that appears on flag and currency and official seals. The coat of arms of Fiji, adopted at independence in 1970, contains images that tell the nation's story in pictorial form. A shield showing a British lion holding a cocoa pod, representing colonial history and agricultural products. Above the shield, an outrigger canoe, representing Fiji's Polynesian heritage, its seafaring past, the vessels that brought the first people to these islands. Supporting the shield on either side, two Fijian warriors in traditional dress, holding war clubs, representing the strength and heritage of indigenous Fijians, and beneath it all, a banner with the national motto, Reravaka Na Kalu Ka Doka Na Tui, which translates as Fear God and Honor the Queen. Though since Fiji became a republic, some interpret Tui more broadly as honoring the nation or its leadership rather than specifically the British monarch. The coat of arms captures Fiji's complexity. Indigenous and colonial, traditional and Christian, warrior and agricultural, sea and land, past and present all contained in one image. Like Fiji itself, the coat of arms is synthesis, compromise, attempt to honor multiple truths simultaneously, to create unity from diversity, to build national identity from complicated history. Some criticize the coat of arms for giving too much prominence to colonial symbols, for the motto in particular with its reference to monarchy. Others defend it as honest representation of Fiji's actual history, which includes colonialism whether anyone likes it or not, which includes Christianity which has become deeply Fijian regardless of its foreign origins. The debate continues, but the coat of arms remains, appearing on passports and government buildings, representing Fiji to the world, containing in stylized form the tensions and syntheses that define this nation. Indigenous and immigrant, traditional and modern, Pacific and international, all at once, all the time, all part of the complex truth that is Fiji. Picture that coat of arms. The British lion and the outrigger canoe existing in the same image, colonial power and indigenous vessels side by side, neither erasing the other, both part of the story, and the Fijian warriors supporting it all, holding up the shield that contains these contradictions, strong enough to carry the complexity, to hold the tensions, to be both things at once without splitting, without breaking, just being all of it simultaneously, the way Fiji is all of it. Simultaneously, the way you are all your contradictions simultaneously, strong and vulnerable, awake and sleeping, individual and communal, specific and universal, all of it true, all of it you, all of it held in the container of your identity just as Fiji's coat of arms holds its multiple truths in single image. Let that coat of arms float in your mind's eye and then fade, the lion and canoe and warriors dissolving into darkness, the complexity releasing into simplicity, the image becoming just memory, then becoming just shadow, then becoming just darkness, then becoming nothing, gone. Feel now the rhythm that has guided Fiji's agriculture for thousands of years, the cycle that returns eternal. The yam harvest season, between May and August, is one of Fiji's most important traditional times, marking abundance, the culmination of months of planting and tending, the gathering of staple food that will sustain families through the year. Yams in Fiji are not the sweet potatoes that Americans call yams but true yams. Starchy tubers that can grow enormous, some specimens reaching over 100 pounds, requiring poles and trellises to support the vines, requiring months to mature underground while the vines climb toward the sun above. Harvest time is communal work, Families and villages digging carefully to avoid damaging the tubers, excavating massive yams that have been growing in darkness, hidden from sight, all their growth secret, underground, and then the reveal. How large did they grow? The largest yams bring pride, are displayed, are sometimes presented to chiefs, become subjects of friendly competition between growers. The harvest is followed by feasting, by thanksgiving, by recognition that the land has provided, that the cycle is complete. Planting in the time of plenty, tending through the growing season, and now harvest, the reward for patience, for labor, for trust that what you put in the ground will return multiplied, transformed, nourishment created from seed and soil and sun and rain and time. The yam harvest connects modern Fijians to ancestors. The same crop, grown the same way, harvested in the same season, eaten with the same gratitude for thousands of years. The cycle unbroken, the tradition continuing, each year's harvest a reaffirmation that the old ways still work, that the land still provides, that patience and labor still yield abundance, that the cycle continues. Picture a family digging yams. The excitement of excavation, not knowing how large the tubers have grown, the care not to bruise or cut, the satisfaction when a massive yam emerges from the soil, evidence of good growing, of successful partnership between planter and land, and then the gathering, the counting, the estimation of whether this harvest will be sufficient, and always, always, the gratitude, spoken or unspoken, to the land, to the rain, to the sun, to the ancestors who taught the techniques, to the spirits who dwell in the soil, to whatever force sustains the cycle that brings seed to harvest to seed again, endless, reliable, the foundation of life itself. Let that harvest scene fade now, the yams back in the ground, the digging not yet begun, the planting not yet done, time moving backward to the moment before planting, before growth, before the cycle begins again, and then further back, to the field empty, to the land waiting, to the potential not yet realized, and then to sleep, which is the field waiting, which is the potential before planting, which is the emptiness that precedes growth, the darkness that precedes dawn, the rest that precedes activity, the necessary nothing from which everything grows. Understand now the quiet guardianship that protects what remains. Fiji has established a network of marine protected areas, portions of lagoon and reef where fishing is prohibited or strictly limited, where marine life can recover from harvesting pressure, where ecosystems can maintain their health, where biodiversity is actively protected. These protected areas are often community managed, villages declaring taboo on fishing certain areas for certain periods, combining traditional resource management with modern conservation science, using ancient practices to achieve contemporary goals. The protected areas work. Fish populations inside them are demonstrably larger and more diverse than in fished areas. Coral is healthier, ecosystem function is better preserved. And the benefits spill over. Fish from protected areas reproduce, their offspring repopulating surrounding waters, making even fished areas more productive. The protected zones serving as nurseries and seed banks for the entire system. Fiji has also protected significant land areas. The Buma National Heritage Park on Taveuni, the Sigatoka Sand Dunes, other areas set aside to preserve native forest, protect watersheds, maintain habitat for endemic species. These protections are imperfect, enforcement is challenging, boundaries are sometimes violated, local communities sometimes conflict with conservation when they need resources that are now protected. But the commitment exists, the recognition that some areas must be preserved, that not everything can be harvested, that sustainability requires restraint, that protecting now ensures availability later. Fiji understands something that many nations are still learning. Natural resources are not infinite, exploitation has limits, protection is not luxury but necessity, and acting before crisis is easier than responding after collapse. Picture a marine protected area. a section of reef where no fishing is allowed, and the difference is visible. More fish, larger fish, healthier coral, the ecosystem functioning as it should, abundant and diverse, and around the edges, fishermen casting nets, taking from waters that are replenished by the protected core, the system working, the protection benefiting even those who can't fish inside the boundaries. The whole lagoon healthier because some of it is untouchable, preserved, allowed to just be, without human extraction, without use, just existing for its own sake, and in existing, making everything around it better. Let that protected reef exist in your mind, untouched, healthy, abundant, and let it represent the parts of yourself you protect, the core you don't give away, the essence you preserve, the self that exists for its own sake without purpose, without use, without need to justify or produce, just being, just existing, protected and therefore healthy, abundant and therefore able to replenish the parts of yourself you give to the world. You need your protected areas too, the times and spaces where no demands can reach, where you're not useful, not productive, just existing, and sleep is that protected area, that marine reserve of consciousness, where you're not accessible, not working, not serving anyone, just being, just resting, just existing in protected peace. And finally, as the absolute last whisper fades into infinite silence, receive the blessing that Fijians offer to those departing. When someone leaves, whether leaving a home, leaving a village, leaving Fiji itself, there is a blessing given, Mos Mada, Lako Vinaka. Sleep well, travel well. The words acknowledge that journeys require rest, that movement requires pauses, that going forward requires stopping to restore energy. The blessing says, may your sleep be deep, may your journey be safe, may you arrive where you're going, and may you return when you're ready. It's blessing without possession, sending without holding, acknowledging that people come and go, that attachment must be balanced with freedom, that love includes letting go. This has been such a journey, 100 facts about Fiji, woven into story, spread across 13 segments. Every fact an invitation to rest, every image an encouragement to let go, every word carefully chosen to carry you deeper into the peace you deserve, the sleep you need. We've traveled together from 333 islands scattered across the Pacific to protected reefs where fish swim undisturbed. We've walked on sand made by parrotfish, we've drunk kava in ceremonies, we've heard the lolly drum and watched fire walkers, we've learned that Fiji is Viti, that Vanua means land people customs inseparably one, that Karakir creates webs of obligation, that Solasolavaki builds houses through community effort. We've met sacred eels and orange doves, we've sailed on Drua and Bilibili, we've eaten kokoda and cassava, we've understood that time can be measured by yam harvests and star positions rather than clocks and calendars. We've felt trade winds blow constantly, we've floated in water that's always the perfect temperature. We've seen soft corals wave in current. We've heard Fijian language flow like water, musical and warm. We've witnessed traditional wrestling and rugby sevens. We've participated in Balubilu ceremonies and Majitai feasts. We've learned that some land can never be sold because it belongs to the Matakali through time. We've understood that Fiji faces rising seas, that paradise is vulnerable, that beauty doesn't protect against physics. And through it all, through every fact, every story, every image, the invitation has been the same. Let go, drift deeper, release your grip on waking, surrender to the rest that your body needs, that your mind craves, that your spirit requires. The journey is complete. All 100 facts have been told. Fiji has shared itself with you, opened itself to you, given you its stories, its beauty, its complexity, its truth. And now there's nothing left to tell, nothing more to share, nothing remaining except the blessing. Mos Mada, dear traveler. Lako Vinaka. Sleep well, Your journey through these stories has brought you to this moment, this place, this threshold between waking and sleeping, between consciousness and dreams, and now you cross it. Now you step over. Now you let go completely. The last thread of awareness releasing, the final grip loosening, your conscious mind finally, fully, completely surrendering to sleep. Mos Mada. Sleep well. The islands are sleeping. The reefs are resting. The trade winds blow gently over water that holds nothing but peace. The yams grow in darkness underground. The sacred eels swim in their pools. The orange doves sleep in the forest canopy. The villages are silent except for the ocean's whisper. The Vanua rests. The Matakali sleeps. The whole nation, all 333 islands, all 900,000 people, all the land and sea and sky, all of Fiji, all of Viti, is peaceful, is quiet, is resting in the Pacific night, and you rest with them, part of them now, connected through these stories, through these images, through this journey you've taken together. Mos Mada. Sleep is here. Sleep has been here all along, waiting patiently, and now you arrive, now you surrender, now you sleep. Vinaka Vakalevu. Thank you for traveling. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming to Fiji in imagination, in story, in dreams. Leko Vinaka. Travel well into sleep. Mos. Good night. Sleep. The blessing is given. The journey is complete. Rest is here. Peace is yours. Darkness is complete. Sleep is absolute. You are gone. Beulah. Mos. Rest. Peace. Sleep. Vinaka. Mos Mada. Sleep well, beloved traveler. Sleep well in the embrace of Fiji, in the shelter of story, in the peace of complete rest. The islands hold you. The ocean rocks you. The trade winds cool you. The Vanua claims you as its own. You belong now to sleep, to rest, to the deep Pacific night where dreams swim like fish in warm water and consciousness dissolves like salt in the infinite ocean. Leko Vinaka. Sleep well. Travel well into dreams. The journey is complete. The story is told. The islands are sleeping. And you, dear traveler, you are sleeping too.